So is this the first time?
This is the first one. They're going to discuss.
Yeah, so we apologize for the confines. We're having our regular board meeting next week. We're changing the venue. This space we realize we may need more people. Next week will be at Public Woods Auditorium. Apologize for small. Let's see. Let's call to order the 2/9/2022 special board meeting at 6 p.m. Roll call.
Commissioner Campbell.
Here.
Commissioner Lawson. Commissioner Rapp. Here. Commissioner Rich. Commissioner Seaman.
Here.
Commissioner Koto.
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda? So you want under new business C much?
Video recording of board also in new business. So that vote on a motion that topic. Thank you so much.
Any other changes to the agenda? All right. Time for remarks to visitors. There are, in fact, two opportunities for us to hear from visitors. As a part of remarks to visitors, you're welcome to speak on any issue. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to speak, click on the blue hand sign in the participant box. If you're present in the audience, would like to speak, please raise your hand. When called upon to speak, please state your name for the record and keep all comments under 3 minutes. This is not a question and answer forum, so please do not expect a response for this evening. However, we will be addressing a significant volume of information regarding the lakefront master plan at a later time. And after that presentation, we will have another remarks from visitors.
Just to the board member, since I didn't have a chance, you do have a number of documents in your portfolios or on them that will be referenced tonight.
So, may I? So these documents, these are all the documents.
Not yet. These are all things that have come up since the packet was issued. They will be, some of the documents will be added to the packet. Some of them are confidential, but some of them will be added to the packet. The packet will be replaced with a revision on it.
I think that we need to let the process. More packets on issues and deliver in adequate time for permission, properly review the content. I suspect we're going to see a number of drawings and designs. The problem is that those drawings and designs never made board packets. And this is a problem. So I'm asking cooperation of the executive director and the staff to get these packets.
It's been a busy week. We're doing our best. It's been a busy week. It's been a busy couple of weeks. It's the busiest time for the park history. We have, so, bear with us as we will go through a lot of documentation. Again, 2 periods of public comment now, with the presentation of all the documents. And again, we are not intending to make any decisions tonight. We will be going through at the next meeting. We realize it's a ton of information, a lot of which we could pull prior meetings. There's a ton of information. We're going to do our best to get it posted as quickly as possible on the website. So that you do have good time to review it. And then come again on the 16th in a larger forum format. We again have another opportunity to address. So with that, I would invite.
So.
You have to say your address.
No, you don't. That's actually, that's Attorney General Binding Opinion 2011. Addresses are
I know
not
where Ted
required.
lives. You know where Ted lives. I know where Ted lives.
But Ted is correct. And speaking of that, if you're going to be dealing with documents at this meeting, can't make them confidential. Those have to be disclosed to under FOIA and domain. Now, I actually believe that everyone. I respect the commission. Turns more to non-residents, access to beaches. Differences or racist policies and what. Someone living in Cairo has as much right to access to our lakeshore as anyone living in Winnetka. It's not for Winnetka, it's for all of us. And it's troubling to me that you guys, and I feel like the information is presented. I don't the information. And it seems like the information is designed to steer this in a certain direction. Safety review saying we should put up signs to say people can't access this because there are rocks and they get injured. Well, that's wrong because you don't have the right to put up a sign saying that this is private land. Your packets, piers over the lake, they are not private piers. Those are public piers. I think we're on Lake Michigan, and they could call the Coast Guard if they want to challenge it, but the Coast Guard's going to side with me. You know, if it seems like everything that's been done here has been done to steer away from ability to access the lakeshore. You look at the US Corps of Engineers permits for some of these other sites. One of the things that they require is that access to the beach be maintained. There should be, you should be asking for stairs. If they're gonna a nice square concrete jetty, you should be requiring that stairs be provided so people can walk in the area that's held in public trust down the lake shore. I just feel like we've gone in the wrong direction. Oh, last one more thing.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, people in the back are trying to hear and they're saying they can't hear,
Oh.
and I don't know there's. You have a microphone?
We don't, this room is not equipped with
I
the
sent a
PA.
letter a week ago saying this was gonna happen, and that the place to be packed, and you need a microphone, you need to have screens so people can see, you need to have a seat for elderly who can't sit, you need to have wheelchair access. I sent a letter to the whole park board saying this needed to be fixed, and you ignored it. Don't tell me you're too busy. You had time to move it over to the village hall or community house or anyplace else. So don't tell us now you don't have a microphone.
Okay,
It'll be
Ted,
sworn in.
Ted has got the floor.
I'm just gonna finish.
Sorry.
I think I'm pretty close to this, but I just remind you.
We got two chairs over here. I mean, I know two's not enough.
We need
Hey,
a
let's
microphone.
just-
There's
Hold on,
six-
hold on,
there's
hold on.
16
I know two, we have two chairs, we have a chair over there. I'm not trying to be combative. Just we have, if
Is there
people
a
want to come
portable
in
microphone in the house?
and sit right there, come, please come in. and sit
There's
right-
no microphone in the whole park board building.
Maybe we could put the podium over there so that
Yeah,
the speaker's voice.
You want to turn the podium? Do you want me to start over? So basically, last thing I'm saying is that I think remember, the village should remember, I know that this grand plan to find the parks has been there forever, but you know, the billionaire that bought the land to the south and bought the lot between them also has a vested interest in trying to combine it. And you know what, if they don't want to do what you want, you should say, fine, keep your 50-foot lot between the parks and we'll deal with it. And I'm sure that they won't be happy about it. I mean, we have power in this as well. And we should not give up what is held in our trust for all citizens of Illinois, only to get something that we think. Thank you.
Trying to speak up so everybody can hear me. My name is David Stevens. I live on 333 Sheridan Road, which is just north of the Elder Park. So this is very near and dear to my heart. I'm frankly astounded at reviewing the documents that it got this far without the amount of public input. And a very recent outcry, but I think that was just because of the discovery of what's going on. I'd like to thank the park board for their long-term vision of trying to combine the parks. I think that is an admirable goal, but at what cost? And that, to me, the cost of looking at the documents and the infringement on the public access to the beach is far outweighed by the combining of the parks. So I would really like to see, as Ted indicated, that if we cannot get rid of something and have a clear view of the lakefront, that we really should punt on this deal and get rid of the whole deal and keep the house in between.
My name is Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
My name is Rob Schriesheim, and first I want to thank you for having this session and for affording the opportunity for public comment. I've lived in Winnetka for coming up this year on 30 years. We've raised 4 children, 3 of whom worked as lifeguards on various park beaches. In addition, we've spent many hours at dog beaches with a black lab for more than a decade. I live at 656 Maple Street, otherwise known as the Lego House. That's between Sheridan and Pine, which is maybe a 3-minute walk from the beaches. I should also point out, as a matter of disclosure, I have no relationship of any type, either direct or indirect, with the private residents, private landowner, nor anybody on the Winnetka Park District. I don't object to the goal of consolidating Centennial and Elder Beach. It seems like a very sound plan. It seems like a lot of thought has been given to it. nor as someone who's been involved in many complex commercial real estate transactions and exchanges, do I object to a property swap in obtaining such goal. It may have obvious property value enhancements to the private resident, but I assume, presumably, the village is receiving equal value for what it is conveying in one form or another. However, as many of you, I object to the wall portion of the project in any form, which currently, if I understand it, looking at the documents and looking at the pictures, includes steel structures of substantial, what I would call all-in height, such that it creates an obtrusive border wall around the beach property line. So I understand it. The border wall, sorry for that terminology, the park district will build under the proposed plan would box in the area from the northern part of Elder Beach to the southernmost part of Centennial, with the southernmost wall serving as a privacy wall, if you will, on the northern end of the private residence's property. Therefore, it will box us in, impacting views up and down the shoreline as well as general access. Of course, I don't know what happens on the southern boundary of the private residence's property as far as future walls or privacy structures, nor am I aware of any such activities by the private residence's law firm. With that as quick background, 5 points. One, the process, from what I can tell, has not been transparent, though I do understand that COVID impacted the operating environment. I'm sure that there wasn't any nefarious intent. But many people, including myself, have only just learned of the project scope. And contrary to comments from representatives of the private resident, there has not been a wider understanding of the project amongst the community. As an example, my understanding is that the village council was misrepresented as having been supportive of the project based on the letter. I'll finish it soon, of support dated from October. However, members of the council have now stated they only just became aware of the nature of the steel border wall and the attendant privacy wall aspect bordering the private residence. Second, my understanding is that the petition has secured about 1,200 signatures. Well, we have 12,000 residents. According to census data, 68% of our residents are below voting are voting age or above. There's 4,000 households. So obviously, it's a pretty loud cry from the community. I'm unaware, thirdly, of any such wall in any community in the country. Darien, Connecticut, Greenwich, Connecticut, Naples, Florida, Larchmont, Scarsdale, check it out. No such wall exists, and I don't know why we would set a precedent in constructing a wall that obstructs the view and free access. Finally, the fact that the media, such as the Tribune and other media, are picking this up and broadcasting us as an exclusionary, wealthy community, obstructing the natural beauty and of the beach and free access, it's just a horrible indictment of the community. So I laud the efforts to beautify the beaches, similar to what you did at Lloyd Beach. But I think any notion of a wall that's on the order of 180 feet long,
There's a lot of people that want to speak here. 4.5 minutes.
to essentially provide a private border wall is something that should be rejected.
Please give other people the opportunity to speak. Thank you. Again?
Can you find a place for all these people that are outside and can't hear or
Yeah.
see?
Do we have more chairs in back?
Do you have 6? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 8 people outside, and there's 1, 2,
Also
3, 4,
chairs.
5, 6
Wait a
standing
minute.
here. We were in a circle.
Does somebody want my seat? Yeah, sure. Somebody want my seat? Yeah, what?
Gotta go that way. Gotta go that way. Other way.
Gotta go the other way to get in?
Yeah.
If you're willing to sit on the floor, there's room up here on the floor. There's room on the floor. Anybody wants to sit on the floor?
not an ideal solution, but. No, no, please be here, but if you can't hear, well, it's all the broadcast, right outside your house. So, if I could have everyone's attention. Look, obviously, we're beyond the capacity of this room. Happy to continue here, but I want to make sure that everybody can hear, everybody has an opportunity to speak. And, there is the option of just recessing and reconvening in a larger venue next week. If you want to keep going, we'll keep going. If you want another opportunity, we are having another board meeting next week. As I said earlier, we are not making any decisions. We are here to listen and to get your input. So if you're okay continuing, we're okay continuing. I just want to make sure everyone knows that we'll have another opportunity next week. So if nobody's objecting, we'll continue.
I have one other comment. Thank you. I know on the agenda, there's a discussion of video recording meetings. And we're going to discuss that, but I do want to let everybody know that we are recording this meeting. We're not, it is being recorded back in the corner. We have a camera. We're letting people in and they can hear the meeting. We're not showing them on the screen via Zoom. But just so you know, as you are making, thank you, Commissioner Radford, pointing out, if anybody up here that's making public comment, just so that you're aware that it is being recorded.
And we'll be able to see it later for people who are here.
We do not know exactly when it will be uploaded. This is a new platform for us, and this isn't the platform that we will probably go forward with. We're trying
But is it your
to.
intention to show tonight's meeting that you recorded?
Oh, yes, absolutely,
I'm happy
absolutely.
with that.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Who would like to speak next?
I like the next slide here. I got some.
Chuck Dowdy.
Chuck
Chuck,
Chuck
you have to go to the podium and speak.
Chuck Dowdy, 968 Elm Street.
You want to tell me, and I'll clip?
Yes, well, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for coming this evening. I want to thank the park board for pursuing this wonderful plan of joining these two beaches. This is a goal that's been sought after for decades here, and I'm glad to see us making progress. I have a few comments, though. I hope that friends can disagree. We all speak friends. I know you all, I play golf with you, or we go to church together, or we go to meetings, we have our kids have gone to the same school. But I'd like to hope that we don't disagree on facts. So I'm a numbers guy, engineer, so I've got some numbers. First one is the analysis of the information in the petition. The upper drawing is that from what was done in the petition, from which you have 1,200 signatures. The bottom one I took on May 31st, where the person is 5.5 feet high and he's standing at elevation 580, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, who give records of lake elevation. The lake is right now 580. 585 is an important elevation because that, according to figure 80, should be the document, is the sand level elevation at the beach. You see that'll have to be filled in. 596 is the elevation used by the Lakota group when they made their presentation of the wavy louvers, and that is the approximate elevation. You can see that, in fact, the analysis of the information petition and the photograph are pretty much largely the same.
Can I definitely want you to continue. I do want to point out that the top of the steel wall is at elevation between 590 and 591 for a frame of reference. That's the survey.
Absolutely,
That's
that's true.
Stop. No, not the steel wall there. The seawall. See the picture? The stairs?
I'm talking about the top of the louvers.
No, I'm talking about the top of the existing seawall in that
Can you
picture.
just go?
The top of the existing seawall in that picture is at, it's at 590,
Can't
591.
possibly be true. Standing at, you said, well,
Look at the survey there. Okay, please continue.
I took this photograph on May 31st, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, the lake levels 580.
Yes, I totally agree.
Hold on.
Totally agree.
Okay,
Commissioner James.
Yes.
I know you know the numbers, but we need to let the people speak.
Okay.
We need, they should speak.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's not the cold, but we need to let the people speak. As
My
long as they observe the 3 minutes
My apologies.
time limit.
Please continue. Yeah, sure,
Go to
no
the next,
problem.
go to the next slide. Okay, so much has been made about the movie that everybody should look at. I would like you to know that if you make an analysis with Google Earth and you find the beach house the same size as that in the movie, Google Earth will tell you in the bottom left, the eye elevation. Have your 12-year-old do this for you. They probably do it every day. That's at elevation 1623. So these movies were all made at an elevation around over 1,500 feet. Anything 10 feet tall will look small from 1,500 feet away. So I think you need to keep that in mind as you watch this movie. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, the planting boxes and beds are artificial fill on which 6.5-foot fence would be added. This artificial fill violates the village fence ordinance, which states that fences may be no higher than 6.5 feet above natural grade. Now, it's been said that the park district may be a separate entity and not subject to the village ordinances. However, I would maintain that the private residences on either side are subject to that. And since this is a joint permit application, they should be subject to that same ordinance. The next slide, please. On the May 26th meeting, much was made about the boardwalk and how you can see over the louvered wall. This is showing that the boardwalk's approximately 5 to 6 feet above the beach, which is approximately 585. That makes it at 591, the boardwalk elevation. And that would the louvers at 596 and still make it impossible to look down the beach, even if you're standing 6 feet above the beach to the boardwalk. You can imagine how it would look if you were on the beach trying to look over there. The next slide 5 is the spreadsheet from which I took the elevations that were used by the Lakota group when they presented their information. That's the sheet. We go on from that. The next slide is the guardrails taken from 1,500 feet. These are the 6.5 feet sit on top of the planter boxes of rubble stone piles with a combined height of 13 feet above the original ground surface, or 10 to 12 feet above the truck stand, which will bring the beach elevation to 585. And that's according to figure 8 and shipping deck and the plans that were submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers. And lastly, slide 7 shows the Civic plans for filling in the sand in between. So I'm really here to try and help you go look for solutions so we can make this thing happen. I want to see this happen just to dearly resource group. There has to be a way we can do this without gutting the doctrine of public beach access, which this does because it doesn't allow any passage to the beach. We must try and find a way to do that. Thank you very much.
Please come up.
Good evening. My name is Irene Smith. I live at 1087 Elm Street. I've been a resident of Winnetka for 36 years. And I'm really happy to see you all. It's a good thing. Tonight, I'd like to ask some questions. I know you're not going to answer them, but I'm going to ask them anyway. First of all, why are we here? Will you listen to our displeasure at the wall you intend to build, boxing in the newly configured Elder Centennial Beach? Or are we here to be hectored about a plan that's already in the works? I'm aware of more than a dozen emails that the Park Board and Director John Peterson have received from individuals who are financially connected to the new property owner, Justin Ishbia. In fact, most of these emails use the same verbiage, and some have a footer naming Shore Capital, Mr. Ishbia's firm. Are we to believe that you will be buoyed up by a dozen copies of the same email? The letters refer to a vote of 6-0 with one abstention on August 26, 2021, almost a year ago, to proceed with the project. According to the minutes of that meeting, James made a motion that this board reaffirm the decision made in 2016 to develop Elder Centennial Park, acknowledging the property exchange and to proceed with the plan as most recently proposed, including a swimming beach in the south cell and non-motorized boat use in the north cell. End of quote. Commissioner Archambault seconded the motion, which passed 6-0 with one abstention. My question is this: was the wall present in this iteration of your plan? And while we're at it, was the wall included in the documents that you submitted to the IDNR and the Army Corps of Engineers? When did this new addition come about? Here's another question. The petition against the building of the wall has now been signed by 1,259 people. Are you willing to totally ignore the will of that? This wall in the Tribune, WBBM, and Channel 5, and it's embarrassing. Are you willing to be remembered for violating the sanctity of the lake? You want that to be your legacy? Do you know what Montgomery Ward said in his quest to preserve the Chicago lakefront for the public? He said the lakefront should be, quote, forever open, clear, and free. Do you not agree? Why are you clinging so tenaciously to this 13-foot steel and cement structure going out 185 feet across the beach and into the water with no access to the other side, both north and south? You're like the proverbial dog with a bone, or passengers clinging to the rail of the Titanic. Can't you use Lloyd Beach as your model? It is beautiful, and there's no wall. I urge the Park Board Commissioners and John Peterson to consider the will of 1,259 signers of the petition against the wall. Stones, yes. Wall, no. My final question to you is, don't you want to preserve the beauty of our beaches and protect the sanctity of an unblemished shoreline? Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Kate Cassell, McNally. My family and I have resided in Winnetka for about 5 years at 523 Elder Lane in Winnetka, literally 4 blocks away from the site. Good evening, Director Peterson, Commissioners, President James. Thank you for the opportunity to work tonight. Let me thank you so much for your hard work on behalf of the village. I truly appreciate that you are trying to be good financial stewards of taxpayer dollars, protecting and preserving our beautiful natural resources, and supporting our staff as they provide exciting programming of interest to our neighbors. All of this and for volunteer positions is a big deal, and I appreciate it. As is now an oft repeated refrain, both tonight, online and around town, I am in favor of the proposed development to connect the beaches, but against the proposed slated wall. When I have introduced the idea to my children sitting in front of you, my 6-year-old who just finished kindergarten this morning said, "That's not fair. It'll feel like we're in prison at the beach with big metal bars." There aren't metal bars at Lloyd Beach or Tower Beach. What's different about our beach? What's wrong with us? If a 6-year-old can pick this out and feel badly about herself and her neighborhood because of the proposal, I just ask you to please reconsider this design. I know that this is part of Lakefront 2030, but I would personally gladly wait longer for a more thoughtful and composed redesign without the slated steel bars. Please do not mortgage our beautiful land and our stunning views to the interest of a single property owner. Thank you for your attention and the options we're addressing tonight.
Gentlemen, to be clear, I'm speaking as a resident and not as my role as village trustee. So I want to make that clear. Because of that, early on I walked the beach. What's that? I'm sorry.
I know who you are.
Robert Apatow, 730 Artsy Road. I walked the shores early in this project with Warren, and there was no bigger advocate of tonight. But in the meantime, other things have happened. It's a great original plan. I commend, as we all do, I believe, the work that's been done, Lloyd Tower, and your this. And that's why I just don't understand the relentless efforts to get this plan. We had, I think many of you know, we had meetings at the village on Tuesday. Just what I want to do is come to another meeting. Those minutes, you see them in the paper on the record, what the trustee said about this. I know I was very clear in my sentiments that this should not go forward, period. It's time to unwind it or whatever's happened. And so the beach isn't a negotiation. The beach is something that is above that. The beach just can't be negotiated. And I think that's critical. I taught a class, I run many public companies, and I'm now teaching at Pella. I run the Pella Leadership Institute. And one of the things I do there is run the corporate governance program. And I was teaching yesterday class, and I pulled the slide out because I think it's a good corporate governance tweak. As I sit in my seat as a trustee, all of you sit in your seats, it's almost have to remember what you're doing. And I pulled the slide out. And what this slide says, which is slide 21 for my presentation. Fortunately, there's only a few more slides for my students. But it says, how can you check the box for good board governance, but still not be prepared? And it talks about companies like, how did Enron get the mess right? We were. Some of the messes that you've seen with Theranos. They had very good boards trying to do the right thing. But they check a lot of the boxes. Some of these boxes say regular meeting attendance, the ones in yellow, check. Board member skills, all these people are smart and versed on what they're doing, check. Independence, you guys come in this with no baggage or encumbrance of any kind, you don't own property over there, that is in play. Board size of committee, you have that too, right on your board. Respect, trust, and candor, that's critical thing, and a culture of open dissent. All these companies, from Theranos to others, had these boxes checked. There was one box that was not checked, which is at the bottom, individual accountability. That means that some of you have spoken on it, but that means you have to put whatever is going on aside and not go with the flow. You have to, as commissioners, stand up and say, I am accountable, stop something that the entire community wants stopped. Period. I don't know what small sliver there is that's for this project, but I've been listening for the last 2 weeks since I found out about this, so I did not know before. And I've never seen an issue in the village in the decades I've lived here that has this much force behind it, that everyone's connected. So, would you be accountable, stop this, let's end this. Thank you.
You guys hear me in the back? Yeah. Great. My name is Brenda Nichols. My husband John and I live at 854 Bryant Avenue with our 2 boys, 11-year-old Fisher and 8-year-old Bowers. We have been residents of the family of Winnetka since 2011. My husband's family has been out here since the early 80s. My husband and I are both active members of the community. I was on the Willowwood Board preschool for 4 years, serving 1 year as president. I've sat on the Greeley PTO. I have been a room parent and volunteer at both Greeley and Skokie schools since 2017. I'm an entrepreneur and a small business owner. You will find me at the rummage sale this weekend volunteering in the book room. John has been a Cub Scout Dead Dad for 5 years, a youth baseball coach, and sits on the New Trier Township Agency Funding Committee, MFP. We are boat owners. We have a slip at Lloyd Beach for the next 7 years, an investment we made because the value we see in our beaches and our community. I'm saying all of this is because our village is only as strong as the people in it. And I think you will agree, we all have to contribute both our time and dollars to make this town be the best town it can be. However, the wealth of one person does not and should not dictate the actions of an entire community. 3 key points I want to make are tonight. The village of Winnetka does not want this. It is overwhelming. The village officials have come out against it, and our people have come out against it. The only advocates are Justin sycophants and the predatory private equity vultures who stand to benefit financially. This has become a vanity project for the Park District that no longer represents the will of the community. This is the Park District chasing their own ambition in a vacuum, deaf to the voices of the community. The benefits to our village of virgin beaches, while still a great concept, is not enough to accept the short and long-term proximity of these walls. Terminate the land swap. Take it off the table. Justin can live between the parks, and the community will enjoy the beaches around him. It's not too late to terminate the land swap. The action by Justin will embolden the land right advocates and lawyers to enact more sweeping public access standards and laws for beachfront access. The high-powered lords of the wealthy few along the lake will not be able to overpower the overwhelming majority of the community who don't live on the lake, but do enough to appreciate its beauty and accessibility to it. I'm asking you. We're asking you. The village is asking you to stop this. The wealth of one person should not determine the fate of Winnetka, our community, our beaches, and our reputation as a village. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Oh. I'm Pat Hardy, 195 Fuller Lane, Winnetka, Illinois. Beautiful evening out there. I wish I was actually at the beach. I live across from, instead of actually being here trying to defend the future of the beach, I live across from. Anyways, I'm gonna take a long view when it comes to this project. I advise the Park District Commissioners here tonight to do the same when it comes time to vote. I feel like some commissioners here on the board have tunnel vision. They're so fixated on a short-term goal, they are not considering the long-term consequences of their actions. Let me explain. Mr. Ishbia, we live in this beautiful lakefront home on Sheridan Road for a decade, maybe 2 decades, or hopefully even more. I personally wish him and his family nothing but the best here in our peaceful community. After that, I see him retiring
spending time in sunny Southwest Florida. And when he does leave town for a better life on another private beach, guess what stays behind on ours? Yep, that's right. Warren's wall. Warren's louvered wall will still be here in Winnetka, standing high above, blocking Lake Michigan's shoreline access and sunrise views for our local residents forever. The gaudy privacy wall that he and his commissioners just had to have to make a short-sighted bad deal go through in the year 2022 will still be here. Will be just as wrong in the future as it is today. To our Park District Board, you don't have to go along with this. Do you really want this to be your legacy? Is this really how you want to leave our precious little piece of Lake Michigan for our next generation? Is giving up shoreline access and views forever really worth it? I personally think not. Forever is a really long time. Maybe my middle school kid had it right when she offered this little bit of sage advice the other day. She said, "Dad, the new neighbor should just build large sandcastles, not large walls on the beach." Now that's more of the spirit that we need here at Winnetka. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening.
My name's Joanna Carrozzi. I live at 476 Providence Avenue in Winnetka. We raised our son here. We just lived about 10 years. I had a question. Has there been any analysis regarding sightlines from the lifeguard station, the proposed lifeguard station, and the beaches for monitoring children who are out on the water? Should a child go past the breakers and float down to the next beach, how would a parent do with that wall there? I think, I'm surprised this issue hasn't come up before. And as a parent, I don't have to worry about my kid now, but for the rest of you. The other issue is, worked so hard to bring these two beaches together, and then you want to bracket them off and turn the backs on the shore. And it seems to be a self-defeating mission. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening.
Sorry. I'll
That's
go.
fine. No, that's fine. You guys. whoever wants to go first.
Okay, Bauer, come on up. John, can I borrow you for a minute? You're my visual. I haven't started my 3 minutes. Bauer. What I'd like to do is now stand on your shoulders. No, seriously.
No.
So I'm kidding. So I want to just illustrate that I am the size of the planter boxes. And I am now going to have John stand on my shoulders. And then Bauer's going to stand on his shoulders. And I believe the figures could go through the roof. So I'm trying to give you all a visual from the lake on the sand on the lake of what this looks like. Okay, so Bauer, you're the best. Thank you. Again for Bauer. At the last meeting, if the project would go through with the fence not in it. And Warren, you said yes. And I want to reiterate that on the record, that that's what you said. I'm also a little bit bothered that it's the 3rd meeting for this project in a week. And Mr. Ishbia has never heard our passion and felt how we feel about this project. And I could cry. I think it's so abominable. But I wanted to reiterate that so did the trustees. There was a village meeting. What night was that? Tuesday. Thank you. I think we were all there too. We had 3 meetings, all of us. How many people are against the wall here?
Everybody.
Okay, well, I just wanted to give you all a visual. I wish the
group could see it. But the 6 trustees use words like, this is abominable, this is ridiculous. I believe one trustee said, Warren, you had a brain fart, which was an unusual comment. But that this was so preposterous that they all spoke out and said they did not support this as a village, and this is not what we stand for. We do not stand for this, you guys. Okay, I have a little bit more. Vicki and I, Chuck, and a number of other people fought for Dwyer Park not becoming a Trader Joe's or a residential area. We won 20 years later. We fought for Mr. Ishbia's clean water with the stormwater project with Chris Rintz, and it made it a better lake thanks to Vicki and Chuck and all these other people. We won. So the stormwater doesn't go into the lake. We worked with the park district. When you were crazy enough to think the maintenance shed should go by the ice arena in the middle of the par 3, and we said, all the children play there, golf, tennis, hockey, paddle. Are you crazy? 150 trucks in and out 4 times a day. Someone's gonna get killed. I mean, huge trucks. We won. We also, Susan Snyder, I think she's in the room, was the only person that had the nerve to stand up 6-1 or whatever it was. She was the only one that opposed it. And finally, everybody saw the light and we won that project. Now, we're at this project. The lakefront is not for sale. Mr. Ishbia, you need to show up at these meetings and feel our passion. We can't afford to have people come for us. So riparian rights, I believe, go to the water, but not 185 feet into the lake. I feel like we worked really hard since last Tuesday to find this information. Okay, I called several people in this park district. It was buried in the 7th link on the 218th or 231st page. Now, I don't think any of you looked at any of the links. It was impossible to find it. This is not a transparent process. Give me an oath. It's on the wall of the park district. I suggest you put it on your wall. It says, leave the land better than you found it. And I can't find one reason why this is any better. I'm begging you not to do this project. Thank you.
Speaker?
Hello, everyone. Thank you to everyone for your service and everyone who's here this evening.
A little louder so everyone can hear.
Also, my name is Rebecca Ferguson and I live on Boulder Lake, across the street from Pat. And I was here on May 26th meeting to present the petition that was 1 day old at that time, and there were 600 signatures. There are now 1,302, and these are all voices who are just urging you to listen, obviously. To me, I'm standing here and I'm wondering, how are we even still here? I feel like if I was sitting in the spot up there, I would say, all right, guys, this is a done deal. We're not doing this. It's over. Thank you for coming. Let's form a committee and decide what we're doing. I mean, I would think that everyone in this room sitting up there would do the same thing. Raise show of hands if that's sort of how you would handle it. I mean, I just don't know how many more meetings we're going to need to go to and how this process is going to evolve from here. But I'm here to submit the signatures again. I was told that we should now that they've grown. And I don't have more to say. Really, everyone here has spoken so eloquently. I especially do agree on the points that say, why not just not do the land swap? Because if I were in a negotiation with the person and that was how they were behaving, and I felt forced into doing something, I would say, forget it and walk away. That's how I do it. So that's really all I can say. I think this whole room collectively would like better to understand understand and know it. Because I think that's what's missing for all of us, is that people assume that there's something that is not transparent because we don't see the motive. So perhaps if we can better understand if there is a motive, other than the one that we're all assuming it to be, then perhaps. Should I have the petition and the signatures, and then there are some very passionate comments also. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, good evening. My name is Phil Enquist. I'm a resident of 476 Providence Avenue. And I wanted to build on an earlier speaker's comments. A previous speaker quoted Montgomery Ward. Thank you for doing that. But you didn't quote the full quote, and I think it's important here, which was a quote around 1918. That the lakefront is a common to remain forever open, clear, and free of any buildings, which he said. But the second part of that quote is, or any other obstruction, whatever. And I think the high fences qualify as visual obstructions. What's interesting about this quote is the Field Museum just celebrated last month the 100th anniversary of its building, which was completed in 2021 on a different site, because for all sorts of reasons, it was viewed as an obstruction and moved out of Grant Park. So Grant Park could remain open, free, and clear for all generations. And I think we, in our own way, have the same responsibility for future generations to keep our lakefront open, clear, and free. Open, clear, and free of all things, all obstructions. And I think the plan, to credit the Park District, the plan seems to make sense, but the elevations seem not justifiable. Why? What is the function of the tall, louvered planted fences? They certainly aren't any hydrological reason. I don't think there's a reason, and I would recommend that you begin again with the elevations of this plan and keep in mind the views up the shoreline and down the shoreline, which is what all of us cherish so much, living on the lakefront. Agreed. So thank you very much.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Lauren Mulhern. I live at 667 Sheridan, and I just wanted to go on the record saying that I too oppose this wall. Was very supportive of the long-range plan bringing together the two properties to enlarge the beachfront at Elder and Centennial, but cannot get behind this wall. And I want to build on what everyone else has been saying with one angle. I want to think about the precedents. We talked about how this wall down the road for our children and the grandchildren and grandchildren's grandchildren, that wall will still be there when we're all long gone. My point is, if the other lakefront property owners get in line, if this gets approved, they're going to want their own wall too. They're going to get first in line to say, well, they did it there, I want my privacy wall. Then the next thing you know, our entire lakefront is filled with walls, because I can name you multiples, we all know, billionaires on that lakefront that will be first in line to have their own wall. And that's the angle I'm trying to take, in addition to everything, because I echo everything everyone's saying in this room. From a passion standpoint, we want to leave this place better than we found it. And I too beg you to do the right thing and table this so that we can get on the right grounds, have the park between Centennial and Elder put together the right way for our future. Thank you.
in Logan. I only made plans to come here as of yesterday. And I have lived in this community for 21 years as a homeowner, but I also grew up in this community. And my mom, who was sitting in the back, I guess she had to go, has lived in the same house that I grew up in with my dad for 59, almost 59 years now. So we have a legacy and multiple generations. And I just, first of all, want to thank everyone in this room who opposes the wall for getting up and speaking with such a high level of information and detail that helps us all be more informed. And obviously thank our district for all of the work that they do. But if there's one thing that I can tell you that has not changed since I grew up here as a child, it is that this is a community and we don't build walls in this community. We don't divide. We are together, and it has been a warm place to be raised. It's been a warm place to raise our children, and we hope that someday our kids have the opportunity to be in the community and raise their own. So I just want to urge everybody in this room to continue to do the hard work and participate in these meetings and show up and sign petitions and share their sentiments and share the truth, which is that there's information that appears to be inconsistent with what is being proposed and what really should be happening here. We need to stay together as a community, and this is an open opportunity for us to continue to feel that without the walls. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Harrison, 932 Sheridan Road. See a lot of faces I recognize, a lot of the beach. I'm a heavy beach user. I'm a good beach user. I'm a boat owner. Grew up in town, live in town now. Help run the Troop 18 Boy Scout crew. Very close to a lot of Boy Scouts here tonight, actually, too. Thank you guys. I know, the job that you volunteered for as stewards of what's clearly Winnetka's greatest asset and the reason many people move here, including myself. Our open space and our shoreline and our views, and you're the stewards of that. And thank you, and it takes a lot of time, and I appreciate that. Which is why this entire process is so confusing to so many of us. Pounding the table, protecting us from projects like this. And it's confusing to me that you're promoting standing on the beach, not being able to see south, not being able to see north. Is what you should protect us from. I would ask you as stewards if having a wall in the north and having a wall in the south is leaving the property better than this board in here. I would say it's not. But I would ask each of you to think about that, because you really are the stewards. You're a line of defense on the one thing that makes Winnetka truly different. Our open land, our green space, our beachfront. You don't believe people want to see the beach? Go stand at Tower Road Beach. Cars pull down, sit for 5 minutes, and pull back out onto it. You are that line of defense, and we need you to do that. Thank you.
Right here.
Oh, sorry. Who else would like to speak?
The pilot, and I've lived in this village for 57 years. And I can't believe that the population that belongs. North to south, and watch them to see all the beaches, Washington, all the way to Chicago, sometimes probably Indiana, where they are. It's just to ruin that and being closed like a cage.
for Judy Rao, Jim Rao, my neighbors next door. I'm Stephanie Garrity, I live at 195 Overland. If she couldn't be here, she's with her grandchildren, she was attended every meeting. She has 6 points. Reflection on village council meeting, lesson in civics. Public was invited, public spoke, council listened, process was very respectful. Takeaway, Winnetka residents do not want a walled-in beach and want that part of the plan to be changed. The village council members agree, both as Winnetka residents and as a council. Number 2, continuing refrain from the purpose. We are working very hard. There's still the negotiation process. That begs the question, what does that mean? How do you submit a permit application to construct walls jointly with the adjacent owner, say you are still negotiating? How do you hold open houses for the public to see and say you are still negotiating? If so, with whom? The 2020 Orchard Trust or Winnetka residents? It's in that you signed off on the Luber privacy wall plan by submitting the joint permit application. It appears the negotiation with the landowner has concluded and you conceded on the privacy wall. Or are you using this permitting process to force the hand of the landowner, hoping that the permit will be denied as written, go to review so you can amend it further? Number 3, a lot of emotion has been shared and restoration has become personalized. I feel really badly about that. You are all very hardworking volunteers and neighbors. However, this passionate pushback all could have been avoided if you had either negotiated a better agreement or walked away from this deal. Number 4, there has been a significant lack of transparency in this entire process. We were all surprised to learn that this land swap is contingent upon the 2020 of the plan. And further, that permits had been submitted jointly. At this week's village council meeting, a resident expressed concern about what unwritten deals might exist pertaining to the land swap and the final design of the combined park. I respect your response that there exists only one deal, the signed property exchange agreement, but that deal gives Orchard 2020 or Dustin too much power now and potentially in the future. In my opinion, it was a mistake to enter into an agreement as written. Number 5, I respectfully ask that you withdraw the permit application, form a subcommittee with more community representation, go back to the drawing board and come up with a plan that better represents the community's interests rather than the private landowners. Number 6, if the Orchard 2020 Trust does not want to go forward with the deal, so be it, as evidenced by the overwhelming support our Stop the Walls petition garner. There are lots of people who value Winnetka's Lake Michigan shoreline and will be happy to support you as you divide a better. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak?
I don't have any children in the school system. I never have. It's not the one reason that I live in Winnetka, and that is the lakefront. I go to the lakefront every day, winter, fall, spring. Our beach all the way down to Centennial. And all these beaches are parks. What is a park? A park is a green space. And a green space does not contain massive medical.
I prepared nothing at all. It's just that I would like to talk just about a little bit of history. I'm Mary Garrison, 350 Ridge in Winnetka. Many years ago when I was on this board, and I appreciate all that you do because I've done it, and it's difficult. You try your very best, but sometimes it doesn't go with the public, and then you have to read it. But many years ago, we had the opportunity as a park district to purchase the land that had the house. There would be no swap. We would be making Centennial and Elder
one large piece of property, bigger than it is now, because we were purchasing the middle house. Unfortunately, the park district did not have the money at the time. And so we worked with Trust for Public Land, we worked with everybody we could work with. And we went out to advisory referendum. An advisory referendum is not a binding referendum. But the word was, do not purchase the land, we don't want to spend the money. We listened to the public, we did not do it. Sit here today and say, oh, I wish we had really pursued it and spent the money. But we didn't have the money to spend at the time. The difference in that project and the project today, forgetting the wall for the moment, is we are swapping land. We are not, as a park district, getting more land. We are swapping. So we'll have the same amount of land. Yes, it will be continuous, and yes, it's a good idea. But with all this controversy, I do not understand how you guys can just continue on. We have to rethink this whole thing. However it turns out, we get it or we don't get it, remains to be seen. I appreciate all your time and effort, but I do think that if you're listening to all these comments and the petition besides, it's pretty obvious.
Anyone else?
Actually, any information or comments today, but I have been to the last couple of meetings and learned a little bit more about this issue. I just wanted to share my position. I live at 55 Apple Street and have basically grown up here. My husband has grown up here. We've raised up 5 children. 2 of my kids are living in houses in Winnetka. So we're a longtime family. We've been very committed to Winnetka and plan to continue. When we look at our governmental representatives, we vote on those people we think will best reflect and operate the responsibilities within the mandate of the residents of Winnetka. And while I'm not an expert in engineering plans, it has been abundantly clear to me in the last 2 meetings that I've gone to, there hasn't been a single person in opposition of removing the walls. Every single person that has come up and spoken, the size of the survey makes it abundantly clear that the residents of Winnetka, the people that have put you in office, are telling you that those walls should not be there. And not only that, they're saying they're willing to sacrifice the combination or the swap to bring the land together. So I stand, and I'm also really troubled by the fact that as people we have put in office to represent our interests, that it feels as though our interests are not being accurately reflected. So
'94. And the time when I wasn't in Winnetka, I was very involved with politics and all that. And I do appreciate how much time I helped run campaigns there. And I think all of you are smart enough to figure out something that's going to lead to the best interests of the village. And you're hearing how everybody feels and how this wall is anathema to what you all enjoy here in Winnetka. I really think you can do it. Leave that out for you to actually listen to the community.
Anyone else who would like to speak? Yes.
Carl Bucciolato, 150 Westview Road.
Unlike many people here, I'm not a longtime resident of Winnetka. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Southeast Michigan. All I knew was, oh my gosh, you have to move to Winnetka when you're coming to the North Shore. It was known as the city of trees. We don't want to be the town of walls. It's a very timely discussion about walls, about what we've all been through in the last 3 to 5 years. So I echo everything that's been said. I don't want to be living here when this is built. And people 50 or 70 years from now say, what were they thinking? Because I thought that many times when it comes to public projects and thinking, what was the time during that point that those people thought they should be doing? And I just hope that you take all these comments, go back, reflect. I've been to Lake Forest. No one's brought that up. They have a beautiful beach. It looks like, it feels like you're 100 miles away from anything. Why aren't we replicating that? There was an email with line items, and I don't know where it came from, but it referenced Montrose Beach, the dog beach down there, showing ugly chain link fences going out into the water that, as said, is a precedent. I'm like, why would we follow that precedent? We can do better. Where are the people where are the designers? Why aren't they here who drawn up these plans to listen? Have they seen Lake Forest? Have they seen other beaches? We can do a lot better. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I've lived here for 36 years, raised my 3 children here. And along that line, I'll say I'm speaking on behalf of my husband and my 3 children who are saving their pretty pennies so that hopefully they can move back here one day and raise their families here to have the same wonderful experience they did growing up in our community. I echo all the sentiments that everyone has shared here tonight. I am not supportive of the plan as it exists now with these new walls on there. In fact, I have to almost build on what this gentleman said. Someone sent me an email that jokingly suggested that if we didn't do the land swap, what if we put the 2 steel walls on either side of the middle property? It would look like a shipping container. So I think when one puts that perspective on it, it does put the wall in perspective. I appreciate the fact that all 4 of the boards for our taxing bodies are volunteers and spend a tremendous amount of time. They're faced with small decisions, large decisions, expensive decisions. Some are short-term, some are long-term. Some are what I'm going to call a legacy decision. This is a legacy decision. Once we do something with our green space or a beach, that's it. We can always change what signage we have in town or what additions we put on our school buildings, but once our beach is gone, it's gone. I fully hope that this board is taking this seriously. I believe you are, and listen to the community, the petition, and all the people that come forward and really express that this is not the best option for Winnetka. Thank you for your time.
Vicky Appleton, 730 Ardsley Road in Winnetka. And like a lot of you that I see in this room, we have been to a lot of meetings in the last 2 weeks. And every time I come, I learn something new. Some other intelligent, well-spoken, kind, thoughtful, and generous with their time person comes just to add one more thing. And if we compiled all of the comments that have been made in the last 2 weeks between the IDNR, between the park board meetings, between the village meetings, between the comments on the petition, we could write a book on how not to present a project to the village of Winnetka. I have to thank you very much for finally recording the meeting. I asked for that about 7 years, and the village council records their meetings. The library part of which Kate McNally spoke, so she was a trustee for the library. So that young woman, because those little kids that she had to bring to the meeting tonight so she could be here, she also serves us in the library as a trustee. And she is very buttoned up and she is very good about making sure that nothing happens unless the public's aware of it first. So she knows what she's talking about. She serves our village. I also was watching all the kids out here playing with cross, standing from the back. I have a beautiful view of the window and I thought, look at that green space. Look at all those kids playing. Look at this beautiful sunshine. I was just at the children's fair with my 3 grandchildren, packed with young people and little kids and shrieks of happiness and running around and eating their cotton candy. And all I kept thinking was, these poor kids, these poor young people and their children don't know what is going on in our village, in the park district, because they're too busy raising their families. When I had little kids, I didn't have time to do anything but get them bathed and fed and in bed and fall asleep myself. Who can take on this kind of project? So I'm asking the park board, you have the most access to the young families in this entire town. All the parents sign their kids up for every program in this library board. I request that you take these presentations, not that brown piece that's on the end of a picture, but the real walls as they'll really look standing right in front of them. Take them to every lacrosse parents meeting, every tennis parents meeting, every softball team, every baseball team. Take that presentation to every one of those families. Don't make them come to you. You serve them. And guess what? We're the taxpayers. And this project was approved in 2016. Tower's done almost, Lloyd is done almost. Elder and Centennial haven't even started. It's been 2 years, and we who are paying for that, we can't even use it because when this project was started, it was all approved. We loved it. And then somehow, without us knowing, Mr. Ishbia wants a wall and dead silence. They're talking to Mr. Ishbia about the wall. You know who's paying for that? The lawyers, the people who drew those plans for Mr. Ishbia, the engineers, the consultants, the graphic designers who made the video that flew around and showed the whole picture. So it was, as Chuck said, 1,600 feet up in the air and you couldn't tell anything. We're paying for those. If that project had gone to its plan, guess what? I don't even know. I'm trying to get the numbers for how much it's cost us since this project was actually approved. Just because a couple people, not all the board members, not all of them are for this, I can tell you that right now. But a few of them are pursuing it and pushing it with our dollar. And that's what I'm really offended by. This is our taxpayer money. This isn't a private fund for them to go off on boondoggle because they want to hang with Mr. Ishbia and give him his special private fence. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to get emotional, but this project has made me exhausted because we're beating our heads against the wall and some of the people are not listening. Thank you very much for your time.
It's moving on to. I'm Alex those of you who have been to some meetings, I've been to all 3 of them too. I lived here not as long as Lisa, but longer than many of you in this room. Both of our children live in Winnetka. They had a choice after they graduated with their graduate work and they lived other places. They had a choice to move where they wanted to move. In addition to wanting to live near us, which I'm not sure that it was such a smart idea. By us. And so I have 2 children, 2 wonderful son-in-law and daughter-in-law, and I have 5 grandchildren, all of whom live in Winnetka, which is one of the greatest gifts I could ever be given. Many of you say you're so lucky, got all your grandchildren here, and I know I listened to a lot of people make comments. They've all been very deeply caring.
these people in Winnetka, my fellow residents, are very proud of our village, as I am. I have found the most place in the world to live and to bring children up. And I propose to residents who I feel, not knowing all of you, have great integrity and understanding of the value of what trust means in relationships. And looking at what I am comfortable by the fact this plan which we agreed upon supported by so many people and supported today as it was based on position. And I feel that it's a matter of trust with all of you. We believe we have one kind of plan. And the next thing we know, without knowing anything about it more than 2 weeks ago, we have two walls that we all hate. This is a terrible, terrible plan. And I believe that all of you tonight, and particularly you, the park board, you know what's right. You know the right thing is to support the original plan without the walls. You've heard these dozens and dozens of people express their opinions, all against the wall. That's the right thing, is to have no walls. And I think in the end, I'm hoping that all of you will do the right thing. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Yes.
I just want to thank the park board for all the work you've done. I think you've listened to everybody and I second what everyone else has said. I don't want to be continued because friend in the back would like me to ask, tell us how much this all costs. I haven't seen that in any of the literature. What are the residents of the country like to come to this wall?
Oh, this isn't the question and answer session. We'll
Oh,
take the
okay,
question.
okay, okay, but in your next presentations, that would be something that we can professionals. And I hope we don't even use yours, because I think we might be a terrible idea. My whole family rejects to, we've lived here for over 40 years. And I haven't talked to anyone. Please listen to us. Oh, I'm Joan Gass, I live in 1140 Church.
I'm like, you have to speak. First, I want to say thanks for everybody else's comments. It's been very thoughtful. I don't know if I'm necessarily, I'm sorry, my name's Peter Etherton, and I live at 795 Lincoln Avenue. I don't know if I'm going to add any great insight, but I do want to add that I'm only here because my wife, who is hosting a play date and a sleepover for a 7-year-old son, she comes tonight because I don't know if you've ever hosted a 7-year-old sleepover, but to take a bullet for that, so your husband can go to a park district board meeting, lets you know the depth of conviction I think that my wife has about opposition to this project. And I just wanted to know that while I was sitting here, I did see the park district's mission statement here behind it, and I just noted the irony that the statement itself notes that your mission is to protect the assets, natural resources, and open space for the benefit of children. Come up and ask that you listen to these people and hopefully try to follow the mission statement, and obviously try to reassess this whole plan and move forward.
Chris Eilers, Civic.
I won't go over all the legal and action and opposition to this. My perspective was one from the meeting on Tuesday when we came in and there were half a dozen police officers in uniform, and I thought, yeesh, I hope that's not necessary. And I didn't realize this was there was the annual Lifesavers Award for two officers in the midst of Chicago winter. Got a call that someone was drowning. Got there, identified the person, risked life and limb to go into the freezing water. Then the fire department first responders came. They're all three in the water. They saved his life. It was amazing, right? And I don't know how I missed that in the news, but what occurred to me against the backdrop of this issue is, would that witness have seen somebody in the water if they're on the other side of the 13 with those first responders and had to find them quick enough to save them? Would they have had to scale an icy 13-foot steel fence? Would that have been not an award, life-saving award night, and have gone a different direction? So it's important Americans consent here tonight, but also the safety and love this mission. Thank you all for your hard work. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. I'm very happy that's what I'm going to I've had the privilege of going up here and living now, raising up four children. As just a young adult, thoroughly enjoy the privileges. Dating myself, but when I grew up, we could walk from the tower to school, which I know are necessary, but I just really would like to go on record. A practical solution. But all I really want to say is that this beautiful land, which is a part exquisite, precious, and does continue on for future generations.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Rick Upper. I live at 77 Church Road. I've lived here for just almost 5 years now. Just bear with me on this storyline. When I was in college, I was a major in environmental economics, right? So one of the thesis that we did was, we did a couple of things. One is we got not logging all the land that they had access to, right? And how we did this was everyone understand that, if they continue down this path, larger organizations, larger, and take all of the, harvest all the trees. Now, why do I say this? Because that was a very difficult negotiation. I also negotiated with the Wilderness Alliance. What was that? It was a joint effort between the University of Utah, University of Colorado Boulder, and the U.S. Forest Service. And what did we do? We worked on, with the Wilderness Alliance, we worked to build a corridor on the Rocky Mountains so animals had access on the entire range of the Rocky Mountains unimpeded. Okay? So my question to you is that those are really hard negotiations, right? This doesn't seem very hard to me. It's expensive. And then also, what is the intrinsic value of things, right? We don't bring those things up, right? What is the value of knowing that we don't want people to drill in the North Pole, or in Alaska? We're never going to go It's the same thing with this. You can't place a dollar value on the view of an ocean. You can't place a dollar value on meeting your friends there. And I've met almost everyone here, you know, that are my friends at the dog beach, right? So I just, you know, would ask you to think of harder things that have been done, more challenging things that have been done, and how those have favorable outcomes, and also just recognize the intrinsic value of having that there, even if you never see it, it's there, and it will remain like it is. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, hearing no others. Oh, is there anyone on Zoom?
Nope. Nope.
Nobody on Zoom wants to speak? Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to communications. Kyle, do you know how many people are on Zoom?
Currently, we have 6. We've had 13 total.
I want to thank everyone for speaking. We hear you loud and clear. We understand your position. We appreciate this ability of the comments. So, thank you. Just like you. I was thinking. Oh, you're right. No, you're right. Our meeting. Okay, we're gonna take about a 3-minute break.
My mother was a virgin. So I bought a transaction because they actually their copies in November. For Veterans Day for November 11th. We had it off for Memorial
No, like we used to wear them, they used to be a bit of a silence of government.
Remember, next time they was there, it's always the service.
And with our daughter, we're going to office. Do what? What's stuff? We did the tower one. We have really good. That's what I'm gonna. This place is cultural stuff. Like we actually do our daughter. So
The slot they use is the generic slot of meeting. And you can say, my garbage can gets over, my alley wasn't this, you know, any topic. It's not an open mic, but it's a topic, it's unagendized, so you can hear. And then they go to the, then they go to the. And then they're gonna ask for comments.
I got a big gavel. Only comes out of special meetings. Don't throw it around. Mr. Adams? Move on to communications. Mr. Peterson.
So we have a copy of all the communications that were sent in to the Winnetka board and or related email addresses, or somebody came directly to you as board members. We have aggregated those. Steve Adams, sorry, so is going to review them because there are some elements of them that have a confidentiality notice embedded in the email. So we have to review that to make sure we can distribute it to all the board members, but we've aggregated the comments through noon today, and then we'll pick up the pace to see what comes in after 12 noon. We also have in your packet newspaper articles or articles that are on the web from different publications, so those are all embedded. So that's where we're at right now. So we're trying to get to Steve to ultimately get to each of you the communications that took place through noon today.
All right, thank you. Unfinished business, discussion regarding the petition requesting removal of metal barriers in Albert and Centennial Beach Plan.
So the petition was provided by Rebecca Fuller, and the most recent 2019 is in your packet. And I know some of the board members have asked to make sure that it's in the packet for discussion, so I'll turn that over to the board for its discussion.
Anybody want to comment on the petition?
Yeah, I could. Specific to the petition.
Well, we're going to have a discussion regarding the pending permit. Okay. So this is really about the petition.
I'll make one comment on it. I just, listen, I think this is a critical part of the process, and I think it's fantastic that all these people put their name on the petition for the entire public to see in the packet. So I just commend them for giving it the answer.
Comment on the petition at all?
I just wanted to reflect that I think it was over 1,300 signatures now. And that is an incredible number. That is more people than filled out the pocket survey last year. I think that is more people than participated in the entire master plan. We did added all the surveys and the focus groups. And so I feel like that is definitely something that the board can do this to.
With respect to the petition, I hope that we as a board carefully listen and read the comments, because people have taken their time to give, and I've looked at some of them, not all of them, because I haven't seen the 1,300, only 600. There's some good comments in there. Also, I think it's somewhat amazing that Rebecca Ferguson, who has been the custodian of this petition, took her time to tell people how you submit comments to a public agency. She had links. She told you where you could email comments. She started this petition as an effort, she told me, so that people would know how to publicly comment to an agency. I believe that as commissioners, it is the Park District's duty
when they file an application for permit, to have a very visible notice on how people may write and communicate with state and federal agencies about issues that are important to this community. This is again, part of our duty of better communication and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on the petition? I'll just say this about the petition. Respect everybody taking the effort to sign it. I wish that we had better imagery to reflect the intent of the design of the wall. The imagery was used was from the preliminary plans. And I think it's easy to send a petition. I get it. I want to be fair. I think the description of it being a 13-foot tall wall should be put in context of Lloyd. And we'll get into that later, but the grade changes dramatically from the shore, or from the bluff down to the shore. And if you go to Lloyd, you get a sense of scale. One of the efforts of this design is to reduce the quantity of stone. And thus, if you go to Lloyd, go to the other side, the Jackson side, south side, it's an 11-foot grade change from the water to the top of that stone. It's massive. And no matter how you cut it, it's massive. The louvers you'll see, they're 6.5 feet and they taper to 18 inches. You have to acknowledge, the other objections. I get it. I just wish it was more fairly represented in the petition. That's all I'll say about the petition.
President, if you read the commentary that preceded the petition, you would see that there was a link in that commentary. And that link took you to the document section of our park district website. So on that document section, people have the ability to click and go down and review all of what I presume are the pertinent plans.
Understood. I'm just making a remark. That's it. All right. There's no further discussion of the petition. Discussion of pending IDNR, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers breakwater permit application, and public correspondence related to the project.
John, are you planning to leave Dr. Fox video recording of the board meetings, email to the record, communications? Are you planning to read Vicky Apatow's email that you asked to be read at the board meeting?
I will find it and read it.
Communication or not?
Planning to tonight.
Okay. Okay.
Essentially, there was an idea, to open it up to a bigger forum, put it on Zoom, and put the recording of the meeting on our website, so we're effectively acting on it as quickly as possible. This meeting would have been in a school facility, and maybe we could have moved it to the village or some other facility, but school's not out yet, so working closely with D36, we'll evolve it to Hubbard Woods, to their auditorium, and still go through the Zoom and video recording process. So, but I'm respectful of the comments that she made regarding COVID, the age of some of our residents, etc.
Okay.
All right. So, you have exhibits. All right. First, I would like to say we are listening. We are listening very carefully to all the remarks. We are going to listen again next week. Another opportunity at a regular board meeting. As I mentioned, we're going to move the venue to, because this is going to be occupied for camp activities, but we're going to find a bigger venue, one with hopefully a better audio system where we can also record. Second, I want to assure you we're not intending to take any formal action tonight. We are missing 2 board members, Vice President Christina Cotto and Lawrence Board Member Eric Lawson. So So they very much want to be a part of the process, but they're unable to join us tonight. As I said, this is a special board meeting. A regular board meeting will be held next Thursday. So I hope you will attend as we will continue the discussion. All the documents we reviewed tonight will be posted on the website. We have been, admittedly, we're slow on preparing our board packet. There's so much information to process. And what we've done is we've gone back, try to go back to the beginning and give you a sense of how often or frequently this has been discussed. There's a time issue in that, or excuse me, a timing issue in that two newest board members were seated in April and May of 2021. And yet this discussion has been going on since, originally since 2016, but more specifically since 2020, October 2020, when the exchange agreement. So there was a lot of history that the other five of us were aware of, and it's just a lot of information to digest. Probably could have done a better job of bringing fellow commissioners up to speed.
May I make a statement?
Yes, please.
I joined this board at the end of May. And the first week that I served as a commissioner, I contacted John Peterson and I said, I want to review the complete file associated with the Elder Centennial Property Exchange Agreement and any other associated materials. I then sat for hours, and I think John will attest to that. You know what's interesting about that file? There was not one diagram, there was not one plan, there was no evidence of design in that file. So obviously, I did not have the benefit of coming up to speed despite my efforts. And so I want to clarify that because I find that very disturbing. Thank you.
I just want to go back to something that you said for the next meeting. This is the intent of the agenda for the next meeting, that all the materials will be available to the agenda for the following to review it for us as board members to review ahead of the meeting.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this twice, because we realize there's a ton of information, and we're going to go through this information tonight, which nobody's had a chance. Some of it's very old information, but we're going to put it on the website, give everybody the chance to look at it, understand how this unfolded, and then come back next week, and we can have another discussion once everybody's had the opportunity to review and study this. Probably the earliest iteration of the plan with the louvered walls was presented on April 8th, 2021. This was a presentation that was submitted, prepared, and delivered to the board by Costa Catulos. Costa, long-serving director of parks, is on vacation this week. Lucky Costa. So I get to do most of the talking. This is the plan as it existed in April. You can see it is very consistent with what exists today. It shows the north-south and center T. It shows the planter pockets. It shows the access drive. And then if you flip to the next slide, there's a version of the south break wall that's shown exploded in plan with some contours that would be anticipated beach elevations. There's a section through there on the left that shows a person standing relative to the planter pocket, and on the other side of the planter pocket. So the next slide.
So, Warren, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was not at that meeting, which is fine. Was this was in public?
Yes.
This was in the
open portion, public meeting. This is when the first movers, and this was a very preliminary crack at what this.
One of the questions, is that in the public documents on the website? Would that ever include?
I don't know. I'm assuming it is because these are the images that were bandied about.
Does anybody know? I don't know. Cynthia or Colleen, do you know?
Let's look. Yeah, I think we should look. Why don't we look? Yeah, let's look. And then the question, why, when it's something like this is presented, does it not become a matter of
It
record?
should become a matter of record. If it didn't, it was an oversight, but there's so much to get through.
Now, wait a
What-
minute, this is vision critical.
Okay.
Why would this not be part and attached as an exhibit to the minutes?
Don't know the answer to that.
Well, I think we need to figure that out.
So I just want to be clear that I personally attended this meeting.
Yep.
as an employee.
I know, the record reflects that you logged out.
Yeah. So in the minutes from that meeting, the Elder Centennial is still in the planning and design phase. I would like to go back and listen to the tape from the open session and the closed session of this meeting. Okay?
So this was the April 8th presentation. Go to the next slide.
So was this in?
I don't know the answer to that question. We're going to find it out.
We're working on it. We got the document.
Okay. Thank you. Go to the next.
Just in person?
It was just all Zoom. This is all Zoom. This is COVID. Zoom. Next slide. This is from May 12th. Thank you. That's the May 12th version of the plan. You can see there's virtually no changes. I'm not sure what tweaks occurred between April 8th and May 12th, but remains largely the same. It's still north-south center groin, center T. Go to the next slides. And this is the same louvers, but filling in landscaping and design. These are representative images that I think you're probably familiar with. This is the view. So if we're standing on Centennial and we're looking southeast from the public part, that's the rendering. And there was a very diligent effort to be very detailed with Chuck. You saw the Excel spreadsheet. So we got the absolute heights of each of the 385 louvers and represented it accurately. And then we were also seeking to represent the same elevations. You know, again, people are happy to respond, positive, negative. Our goal here was to try and be accurate. Go to the next slide. This is the view from the south side of that wall. This would be from Orchard 2020's view. And this is the one that shows the extent of that wall. As I mentioned before, the existing seawall today, the one that protects the bluff, is at elevation 590. The 590, 591. The sand elevation in this image is shown where it is today, much lower, closer to 582, 583. So that's where you see the drop off. That's that big wall. It is what it is. It's quite similar to what exists at Lloyd with the 11-foot grade change, because the existing sand level is very low on the other side of that. But again, it's our effort to be a fair and accurate representation of what it would look like from the south side, from the private side. Go to the next slide. And here's a view from the water looking back. And there you get the effect of the louvers, so that the louvers were designed to be on a 40-degree angle to the longitudinal axis of the break wall, affording views through to the public, so that the public views would be viewed out. So in this instance, they're looking back into the beach, so you can see through the louvers. Let's go to the next. And incidentally, these were not incidentally, but importantly, these were the exhibits that were used in the presentation to elected officials and to the other administrative agencies. to try and reflect accurately what the proposed design was.
Mr. President, may I speak? In looking at the document section of the website, and the predicate here is the Commissioner Rath and I requested that after the applications for permit were filed, that we would have on the website all pertinent documentation associated and predating these applications, as well as responses to and from the agencies before the applications were filed. The earliest presentation that appears under documents is August 25th, 2021. This was not a public presentation. This was not a presentation to the board. It rather, the executive summary says this was a presentation that was given to the IDNR and the U.S. Army Corps. So everything that you've shown prior to that, that has not been available for the public.
So we're loading it as quickly as we can. So Molly and I, as well as Warren, everybody who wants to participate, we'll add it to the website either tomorrow or end of day Monday. So I'm respectful of your request. We'll have it there as quickly
Thank you,
as possible.
John.
I gotta say, I just gotta say, I feel horrible. I feel horrible. I must read my statement right now.
Get through this? Is
No,
there been a
no,
discussion?
I would request that I be able to read my statement in this section. I guess first I want to be very clear. There would be no Elder Centennial Plan without Commissioner James, Executive Director Peterson, and Director of Parks and Maintenance Katulis. They have spent countless hours and lent considerable expertise to the most recent stage of this project over the past 2 years. So thank you, sincerely. Lily, by the way, I'm going to hand you a copy of this, so it will be in the record. As Commissioner James mentioned at the May 26th meeting, Orchard 2020 had input on this plan. They have every right to represent their interests. They own 261 Sheridan, as well as property south of Centennial. The current plan presented, which is what we're going over now, with the IDNR, Army Corps, presented to the public and submitted to the regulatory bodies, may be the only plan to combine Elder and Centennial in the history of the Winnetka Park District. This is truly historic. It's been a lot of work. I have been a proponent of moving forward with this plan, okay? Some plan. Why? Elder Beach has now been closed for 3 years. Very few are enjoying Elder Beach. Elder and Centennial need significant improvements now. And I think some of my comments will maybe answer some of the concerns, like, why are you doing this? Without improvements, this is true, we are at risk of permanent loss of the beaches. I believe it was our responsibility, and I believe that Warren also agrees with this, to put forth a plan for Elder and Centennial. But now we're at the very important point of gathering final public input, critical. We are required to have open meetings, open houses, regulatory approvals, and public comment. And from what I'm learning, we're also required to put public documents on our website that haven't been up there. The process is working. I can assure people, from my perspective, it's cumbersome, but I welcome it. I actually enjoy this. It's lonely for most of these meetings that we have. We have received considerable feedback on the plan. If there's one common theme that I have taken from it, we must do something to improve Elder and Centennial. There are numerous individuals supportive of the plan. I've seen the emails, but many more are opposed to it. As a commissioner, as a public official, it is my duty to represent the interests of the public, most notably the taxpayers of Winnetka. I don't represent my personal interests, the interest of any single party or any other board member. More importantly, it's also my duty to continue to listen and learn throughout the entire process. Despite all the time and taxpayer dollars that we have invested in this plan, and I consider them investments, not costs. These are investments that are needed to try to get this project done. We cannot ignore the constituents we are bound to represent. Therefore, given the many concerns from the public around the current plan, it is my position that the board should move to amend the current plan. I remain hopeful that we can find a satisfactory plan for all interested parties to finally combine Elder and Centennial and beginning the long-needed and necessary improvements. Respectfully, Commissioner Seaver. That is it. I was for this plan. Pretty hard for me to be for it now. So I also would say, Commissioner James, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. We share some of the same interests on podcasts. It is a bit presumptuous for you to say that we are not going to decide anything here tonight. We actually have quorum. We have 5 commissioners. That is very presumptuous. However, I think it would be bushly without 2 very important commissioners. So I don't think that you can unilaterally decide. There may be motions here tonight, and they may be seconded, but we might table them. But I think it's very presumptuous, which has been.
I was trying to speak deferentially to Christina and Eric, who have been through all of this. I thought it appropriate, but that's fine.
I'll just say it's very presumptuous.
I
Thank you for the
want-
time
I
to
didn't
put my
want- I
comments
didn't
in.
want the audience to think that we were going to push forward with this without further consideration, right? That was really my intention.
Ms. James, can I ask a question?
Sure.
This June 2nd presentation, I remember saying, was this the first time you met with lawmakers about?
No, this was a presentation, I believe it was put together by Costa. Again, he's not here, we culled through all the files to all the presentations.
Why are we going through this?
Because I'm trying to present the history, okay? That's it. I'm trying to.
I'm looking at this and I'm saying, oh my gosh, I did not think.
These pictures are embodied in other presentations as well. So, again, you're not here at the meeting. This was Costa's
It is
presentation.
June 9th of 2022. I wanted these plans submitted to the IDNR and the Army Corps. I did. I no longer want them submitted. It doesn't matter what happened in June of 21, okay? These have been arduous negotiations. You mentioned April 8th. On April 28th, there was a distinctly different tone on April 28th. Distinctly different tone. Now I thought maybe there was, and you know that, there was a distinctly different tone. So this is
April 28th of this year or last year?
21. April 22nd, I'm sorry. And so I actually don't care about June 2021. What I care about is now and the
All
public.
right, let's
feedback.
keep moving.
Well, let's ask our
I
public.
just want to go through
Does
all the
public want to
documents.
see this?
All right, keep going.
I would like to copy of it.
Yeah, it's all going on, it's all going on the website, folks. It's all going on the website.
Why don't the board members have a copy of this?
They
Why?
do.
You are presenting it. I'm sorry, you are getting heated. You are presenting it once again. A bit of a surprise. I'm sorry. It's not fair.
Let's see the rest of it, because then it'll be for central.
Yeah, we'll all be learning.
The question was asked, the question was asked, can you go through everything? And pull what you have, and that's what we're trying to do. So
Who
these
asked
were.
that question?
Right, you did. You didn't pull all the presentations.
No, what I asked, and this was back after the March 24th board presentation. And after the applications for permit had been filed, I had previously asked that I'd like to see those applications before they got submitted to submit comments. That was not honored, but after the March 24th presentation this year, where for the very first time, I saw the full presentation. That is when I said, let's get this up on the website. For months, I have been, and I know you're fed up with it, and quite frankly, I'm fed up with it. I have been screaming for over a year that we are not transparent, that we do not let the public know what is going on. And quite frankly, I'm going to throw something out there right now. We have a property exchange agreement that was signed in October of 2020. 20 months have come and gone, but Gosh darn it, we don't have a deed. So I have a question, and we have park council here. So perhaps park council can answer. No deed, nothing. Contract signed on or about, I think, October 10th, 2020. I would think that at some point that contract would terminate on its own, or that it would lapse. And I go to section 4, article 4 of that contract. I believe it's subsection F, where there are due diligence periods. The first due diligence period would have been 120 days from October 10th. So that would have expired on or about what, February, mid-February? Okay, without divulging anything that might be executive session. Let's make a presumption. Let's say, because this is a difficult deal, will the contract said we could have a second contingency period. Okay, so that would be February to the end of May. Right. Still no deed at the end of May. So let's even go further. Let's say, land deals can be tough. We'll go a third. That would have taken us to how many? Here we are. We're in June, the next year. Where's the deed? What's the status of that agreement? And I'm gonna make a conjecture that that is a gray area that's up for grabs as to whether there is a contract or not. No, let me finish, and then you can. Let me finish. The minutes, Cynthia and I sat for hours reading minutes, listening to tapes of both open meetings and executive meetings over the last several weeks, so that we would make sure we hadn't missed something. It appears from the minutes that in November 2020, the board and the district started working on design plans. That was November of 2020. And as you read the minutes, these plans continue. And then it appears that there was a joint effort between Orchard 2020 and the Park District to work on designs. And this has gone on for many months. During the village meeting on Tuesday, I lost track of the time, you indicated that you were still in negotiations. So if this exchange agreement is now gone, and if you are negotiating, I'm going to ask by what authority you're doing that, because to the best of my knowledge, there has not been a contract that we, the board, are aware of for these negotiations. And I'm sorry,
Can I
Warren.
speak to that? Yeah, I would ask.
Let me just finish here. And if that contract exists, it should be made available to the community, and all of these designs, absolutely all of these designs, should have been in the open meeting records and available to the public. We have done, in my opinion, a very, very poor job. It's disappointing. So yes.
Steve, you might?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm going to say that the the discussion about the status of the contract is something that we should discuss in closed session, not open session.
And that's why Steve's here.
But I will say that those points that you've raised are, let's just see how I can say it. It's my opinion that the contract remains in place and is in effect. There's nothing that's happened that has terminated those contracts. The negotiations related to the design of the breakwater are separate negotiations.
Right, let me ask you a really important question, because I was watching, I was really a little bummed out, and facial expressions are not universal, which I learned, but I was watching your facial expressions as the citizens of Winnetka made comments, and your facial expressions were a little upsetting to me. And then I hear the way that you might be responding. It almost feels like you may not be representing the Winnetka Park District. That you actually, this is a contract that was signed in October of 2020. That there was some very contentious discussion amongst board members about what to do. Okay, and now you're saying to a board member who's a lawyer, not licensed in Illinois, that, oh, no, it's probably enforced. Or maybe
No, I didn't say that.
Okay,
I
I
said it
just,
is.
I just.
Hey,
I
let
just
me-
think
let
you
me-
have-
let me
one more
fix it.
comment. You work for the board. You don't work for Warren
I
or
understand
John.
that.
Okay,
You work for the entire board. I just want to remind you of that.
I'm crystal clear on that.
okay.
Not anyone else.
Thank you. Let me please, it's my turn to talk, please. It's my turn. to talk. People, you can tell that this has put an extraordinary amount of pressure on this board. And there are things that we can speak of and things we can't speak of because it's a real estate contract. And I can tell you that the negotiations have been continuous and difficult. And this is part of that process. It's been painful. And I think we're close to coming to a resolution. One way or the other. But this is all part of that process. This has taken far longer, but there are things that are occurring that are privileged because of the real estate contracts, ongoing negotiations, ending of threat litigation, are all things that are privileged. If you review, we've been in executive session virtually every other week. This matter being the topic of discussion. That's about as much as I could say at this point on that topic, but we will be in executive session again later this evening.
I would just like to know that the minutes of the regular board meeting for May 27th, 2021 are not available on our website. Only the annual meeting minutes are there, not the regular.
I'm sorry,
May.
May 2021.
You'll have to verify.
Verify it. I'm looking at it now. So I'm sitting here as a board member, having looked through all our minutes. If there's no reference to this presentation, presumably maybe it was reviewed by the board at that meeting. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. The public doesn't know.
One final comment and then I'll shut up. How long do we hide behind a shroud of confidentiality and secrecy before we finally say, 20 months is one heck of a long time? I would think I could get a deed, even though I'm not a real sharp lawyer. I'm not licensed in Illinois, but I think I could get a deed today in 20 months. And then why do we continue to spend money? And for goodness sakes, why the heck do we go forward with applications for permit as joint applications when we don't even own the property for which we're seeking a permit for?
Yeah.
May 27, 2021 meeting notes. Printed them off of our website, so if you want.
But I really want it to be on our website.
They are, that's how we got it.
Okay, can we go to the next exhibit, please? Just pause on that. You go back one slide. So the purpose of those pictures that Libby just scrolled through is identifying all the locations up and down North Shore where there are fences erected along public beaches. The pictures left and right, that's a void. And you can see in the left picture a string line. When this was from April of 2021, when the concept of the louvered wall was first considered. And in order to better understand the relationship, the absolute relationship of the height of the top of the louvers to existing Lloyd, Costa Tulis strung up that string line, put the ribbons on it, so we could help visualize in absolute terms just how high the top of the wall is. It's still there. It was originally strung up in April of 21, came down, and then went back up in October. There's that black rope that approximates the height of the top of the roof. Again, we're just trying to identify that there was thought, care given into, serious contemplation into the design. If you could go to the previous slide. So one of the observations that we took from Lloyd was that there were massive quantities of stone. Massive, and stone that candidly isn't doing much for anything. Each one of those boulders was trucked from just south of Madison. The reason why is because we have limestone here. Limestone is native. It's sedimentary rock, frequently fractures. The size of these boulders is predicated on the size of the waves. They have to be heavy enough not to be moved by a wave. So limestone cracks, you lose half the mass, the wall starts to break down. That's why we use granite as the most expensive, most solid. We went for an intermediate choice with the quartz. Again, one of the motives of trying to modify the plan was reduce the quantity of stone and the trucking expense. Go to the next. That was prepared by Coast to present to the board. That's my recommendation.
You said I did.
So I would appreciate as a board member, mind receiving a copy of this, as well as an indication as to which board meeting it is. That, because I
don't know why we're going through all this.
Look, because we're trying to show how this plan evolved. The question was, how did this plan
And
evolve?
we know what the plan is in the public domain. We know it's on the website.
How did we get rid of the plan and go back?
We have
Just get through this, please.
Well, we have
just. But these people haven't.
I don't think they have it. They said they don't have a copy of it.
Don't like it.
Okay, what?
I'm willing to forego. If you just put these out on the website, I can look through them at my computer. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next, let's just keep going through the files. This was August, we'll scroll through it quickly, just quickly scroll through.
Like August 26th, I looked at.
Right, quickly scroll through.
September 9th, I looked at.
Okay, the purpose.
They're not on our website.
Keep scrolling, please. Go back. Keep going. All right, so just if you go back for a second. One of the questions that came, August 26th was a very, big meeting, and it was largely focused on the dog beach. And the dog beach issue arose because people felt that it wasn't considered as to whether or not the uses of the property had already been determined. And the purpose of this slideshow to say, look, we went through this at the Lakefront Master Planning process, and in fact, it was acted upon in 2016. So this slide and the previous slide, that was the Lakefront Master Plan as it was adopted in 2016. And just keep going. And that was how it evolved, which we got into the actual design. Keep scrolling. And here we're simply highlighting that the uses were defined and heavily debated and discussed. And we said, hey, if we can get the property, then we should provide a swimming beach and a non-motorized beach here. So that's how the uses were determined back in 2016. But it also, importantly, there was a provision that said consideration should be given to the dogs and where we could have with the dogs. So out of that August meeting came the Dog Beach Committee. And I give credit to Chris Rentz in the spirit of collaboration. He jumped in as the village liaison in the Dog Beach Committee, and he polled the village, and they identified the area just the south end of the tower, which is village-owned property, as being a suitable location for the dog beach, seeing as how it would be relocated from Color and Centennial. That was kind of the essence of that.
When did that happen?
August 26, 2021.
Chris Rentz
was involved with the
No,
dog beach?
August 26, 2021 is when the major discussion came up about the dog beach. From that, we formed the dog beach committee. Colleen and Mickey served as the chair. Chris Prince is the liaison. They have been meeting regularly to attempt, we remember the village as a part of this process, identified the location on the old municipal yard as a possible off-leash dry dog park, and we're seeking other locations.
So, but August 26th is the date that has been referenced in many of these emails.
Yeah.
So I voted to continue to move forward because at my.
Yep.
I wanted to move, I want to put something out there. But it's my understanding that the presentation was not publicly available until the September 9th committee of the whole. That's when it was presented.
That is my reverse. That is.
It wasn't
my
August
reverse.
26th. Because there was no presentation that I recall that's in the minutes. And, we did vote to move
Can you go
forward.
back to the date?
So
What was it?
September 9th is when Costa presented at the committee of the whole to the public. And that's when the design became more broadly public. But there's nothing in there was nothing in the
August
packet.
Look, August 26th was when the motion was made to, and I'll be very, very forthright that the focus was on the dog beach. The focus was on the use, right?
Okay, let's set the
Focus was on
scene
the
here,
use.
guys, okay? I remember this very distinctly. Okay, we were talking about at the time, and if you look at the minutes, you will see that I introduced the motion to form a committee to look at alternate areas for the possibility of a swimming dog beach with the dog beach user group. And that motion was discussed, it was refined, and it passed. You and Mickey voted nay, the rest of the board voted in favor. After that, you said, well, I want to introduce a new motion, and what the reason that you were saying this was you were concerned because I had asked, or I think you were, because I had said, look, we got all this new beach, if we can unite these beaches, over 1,000 feet of beach, you mean we can't take a little patch of it and have it be part dog beach? And the board, and David, you may remember this, the board was like, no, we have decided that we're following the waterfront 2030 plan. So then we, in listening to tapes, you introduced a new motion, and it is that this board reaffirms the decision made in 2016 to develop elder and centennial beaches. And as to the plan most recently proposed, such that the South Beach will be a swimming beach and the North Beach will be a boat beach. There was
Non-motorized.
non-motorized boat beach. There was absolutely no discussion of what that plan was going to look like. There was no drawing, no design that was put forward at the time of that motion.
That's why I said it was principally about the uses of the beach.
Fine,
That discussion.
fine, but let us not say, or try to say, that as a result of that vote, that some plan has been chiseled in stone so that we have louvers at a wall.
It's, look,
So why are we getting all these letters about the louvers? The louvers did not appear in public discourse at any of the letter writers. It did not appear on our website. So how is that possible?
I'm not following your question. I'm sorry.
We have received a significant number of emails referencing the August 26th vote, saying that the design is set, it's included the louvers.
No, those emails were inaccurate. The 6-0 vote was to proceed with the two-cell plan with the swimming beach and the non-motorized beach. I
So
totally
how are we
acknowledge that.
clarifying that with the letter writers?
Let's keep going.
Again, there was.
No, just in the interest of time, I just want to get through this because I'm trying to.
Cynthia said, and I was concurrent. I would forego to see it tonight, just put it in a packet, we'll review it. And have it made available to the public. I just, what
All right,
I'm
can you go to the
trying,
next
what I
one?
try to communicate in my statement is that Listen, the public has spoken. The public has spoken. Matter of fact, 1,300 signatures. I looked at the 2021 election for Winnetka Park District trustees. And you know how much Colleen and Warren and Eric got? Less than 1,300. So we have more people speaking out for this, against this. That's where we are right now. I wanted a plan. The plan is being.
So you guys can see that this presentation that goes put together was principally about the uses of the beach, then moving on to the dog park. So we could keep going.
Why are we not respecting
I'm
the wishes of
I'm
the other-
trying to get through the documents that are on the website. I'm gonna skip. Skip.
Put it on the
Okay.
website. It's a.
On the website.
No, keep going.
Very unlike the other ones.
Go to the- All right, September 9th. This is where we came back with more detailed plans. After the August 26th.
First time I ever heard levers.
They're not.
It's on the website. You guys have seen that picture plenty of times, right? Yeah. See that picture, you've seen that picture.
No, I have not seen that.
When you click on Elder and Centennial, there's nothing.
Nothing.
Molly, can you confirm that this presentation is accessible on the website?
Specifically the ones with trees.
I have seen those.
Elder- I'm looking at it right now. It says if
I
you
don't know
want
if
to
it's
see more about
presentation.
Elder Lake Centennial, click here and all it talks about is board meetings when you click on it.
Katie,
There is
some of
a,
the slides
there is
are
a,
video.
there is a list of all the exhibits, and there are live links to all the exhibits. Can you-
Pull the website up here.
No, please don't.
Under proposed plan, it doesn't say.
It's on the website.
This is the only picture that's there under proposed plan.
It is a,
That's it.
what is it?
This is, when you click on proposed plans, this is the picture that comes up, and I'm scrolling for nothing else. coming up.
There's a document list. Look, I totally acknowledge that there's so many documents. You want to hide a book to put it in the library, it wasn't our intent. But there's so many documents in here that this document is on the website. Let's keep moving. October 13.
One pictures on the website.
I just pulled this presentation up on the website, Waterfront 2030, you scroll down a little.
Yeah,
bit.
that's
Is it the seventh link on page
There's-
231?
Waterfront 2030, you have a wonderful, you'll open up a Word document with clickable links, I believe it's the third.
Word document, the clickable links. Look, we're going to approve the access to all this. That's why I'm going through this. So this is going to be the board packet. I apologize. What can I say? Apologize. Let's keep it.
Warren, was this the second time you met with lawmakers on October 13th? Did you meet with lawmakers earlier? That's still something I'm trying to figure out. When did you first meet with lawmakers? then?
We met with representatives in October and December.
Okay, so this is the first presentation?
No, this, can you scroll through this presentation? Just.
This isn't a PowerPoint, so.
So the purpose of this presentation, we have submitted this to the IDNR in our report. Now, if you could just slow down and scroll through.
I have a mouse.
This presentation, what we did is we visited the 16 properties to the south, 16 private properties to the south that are between Centennial and Kellenberg Beach. 42 properties north between Elder and Maybe in the north. And we evaluated all of the beach conditions. So you can see this here is a picture of the existing condition of the stormwater off of Elder. It's been badly damaged. It's 80 years old. It's in desperate need of repair. Just keep scrolling. You can find this on the website. Basically, what we're doing is we're documenting the fact that there are many hazardous and impassable conditions. That's Elder. That's the old those are the foundations for the paddleboard racks that got wiped out. And then in the bottom pictures, you can see the gabion baskets. That's what existed elder in the dilapidated condition. As David referenced, we need to get those repaired. Keep scrolling, please. And you can take your time and look through this. Again, more damage documented. This is what it looks like when the lake gets angry. This was, I believe, 2019. You can see that there's a chain link fence, and that was the fence bordering the dog beach. That chain link fence has been obliterated, buried in the sand. You can still see the posts. This again creates the sense of urgency to get something done. There's the stairs, the 24-inch drop off back in 2020 when the lake was high. Again, I don't want to belabor this, but basically the essence of this plan is say, look, we got issues. There's problems up and down the lakefront. We need to recognize the hazards that exist north and south. Okay, so Libby, let's keep going because there's important stuff here. Showing the planter pockets, showing the types of trees and foliage and dune grasses that are proposed in the planter pockets and native and appropriate to survive in those areas. Keep going. This was kind of the design influence of the louvered wall. So the Botanic Garden. That's where this idea came from.
Tremendous amount of work.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of work.
Now we go back, I don't know that red line's accurate, that red dash line, but the string line again, kind of size, trying to visualize, helping us visualize what it looked like. Keep going. There's that rendering again, and it's showing the plant material, identifying the plant material as proposed in the planter pocket.
So were you proposing movies for Lloyd too?
No, we learned from Lloyd. What we're trying to do is use less stone. That was the initial thing. Use less stone. You go to Lloyd, you see the volume of stone. It's up close to the beach like why? Why are we spending all this money to truck the stone into Madison when we'll never see any wave action? By the time the wave gets in that far, the energy's been dissipated. So the steel louvers will protect the block at that point. There's again the two images that we've seen before. And here again, we're documenting, there was some comment made about setting precedent. And look, private property owners may not erect fences. That is understood, absolutely. Public entities may erect and have erected fences. And that's Kenilworth, that's Lee Street, the big wrought iron fence, 8 feet going out 200 feet. That one on the left, that's Kenilworth. The white picket fence, that's Glencoe Beach. There's a significant drop off. So fall protection has always been an issue. The Lee Street Beach in Evanston, that was separating public and private. Which wrong. Yeah, I'm not dismissing all comments. I'm not dismissing, totally understood, okay? We're accepting your input, just walking through how this evolved. All right, so that is a rendering that shows how the louvers are translucent. The idea was undulate, taper down. The louvers are 6 feet 6 inches at the bluff, 18 inches where they end.
On top of the planter boxes, correct?
Well, 6
And on
feet.
top of the break wall, so it's 13 feet.
No, the wall steps down. See the 589, 588, 587? So the key elevation from the coastal engineers is 587. That's the number that they say you should have rocks or have protection, 587 and below to dissipate the wave energy. Otherwise, it could overtop it and begin to erode behind it. So we set that 587, at least to keep the stone down. So the stone's actually down around 586, and the steel's at 587, and the louvers at the top. So in an absolute sense, the end of the louvers are 588.5 for the step, 588.5. And close to the shore, it's 6.5 feet, and that's 597.5. That's 6.5 feet on top of 594.
So I thought the beach was at 580, so my map shows a 17-foot fence.
Beach, so the sand comes up. Think about Lloyd. If you've got a good visual of Lloyd, the beach house, the floor right in front of the beach house, the primary elevation, 587. Sand, most of the sand at Lloyd's at 587. So it doesn't even seem like it today. That's a 7-foot drop from Lloyd, the floor of Lloyd Beach House down to the water's edge. Water in Lake Michigan varies. We've experienced two extremes in the recent years. 2013 all-time low. Our boat launch was empty. It was dry. The water in January dropped below 596. That exceeded the all-time low, which previously was 1964. So now, fast forward 7 years, I was sitting in this room in February of 2013, and John Shabika said, folks, there is no boat to be launched. We got sand everywhere. You go outside Lloyd Beach, the water is that low. 7 years later, we were experiencing all-time highs. From January of 2020 through August of 2020, each month we exceeded the all-time high water level Lake Michigan.
So Costa's quote was 580.
What I'm saying is the water range, let's just please pay attention, Katie. The water level in Lake Michigan varies from historically from 576 to 582. October of 1983, it reached 582.3, and the storm surge was higher. That's when all the bluffs got washed away. Chuck, you know all this information. So that's what happened, and this is what precipitated. When the water started going up, everybody started building these stone groins because the steel seawalls and the steel jetties that were historically they were the solution, right? Everybody put a steel jetty up there. And what that did is it just captured the littoral drift. And as John Shabika explained in his lengthy presentation, the problem is between Waukegan Harbor and Great Lakes Naval Training Center, all the sand has to move beyond that. And we're sand starved. For 80 or 100 years, we've been sand starved on this stretch of beach. The Army Corps estimates 225,000 cubic yards of sand moves south of the state line every year, but only 14,000, 6% makes it past Great Lakes Naval Training Center. So that's why our beaches are sand starved. That's why people start building these, hardening their shoreline, putting in the stone to protect against erosion, putting in the steel, but we still live in the sand starved environment. So that was part of the evolution. And mind you that every one of these improvements that you see up and down the lake, they've been approved by the IDN Army Corps. And Illinois, of all the states around the Great Lakes, Illinois is the least restrictive policies. That's why you see beachfront improvements. You go to Wisconsin, Michigan, the interpretation of the public trust doctrine is markedly different. There's far more protections against changing the lakefront in those states than there are in Illinois. Illinois hasn't had a seminal case, I think, since 73. Is that it, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's
73,
76.
maybe 76 on the public trust doctrine. So the public trust doctrine, everybody's right, absolutely. The water's owned, or the lake bed is owned by the people. It goes back centuries, and yet every state gets to interpret it differently. Illinois has just done. Let's say Illinois has been most favorable to the private property owner with respect to the lake bed. That's why you see all these different forms of improvement.
Point of clarification, 2 points. One, a lot of the fences that you see that have been put up on private property were put up after the permit was received And after,
Public property, not private. There are no fences on private.
there
Public
are
property.
there are some barriers on private property, and there are also fences that were put up on public property
After the fact, absolutely.
after the
You
fact.
are 100% correct.
After
And we
the
went to
fact.
the IDNR and the Army Corps and said, hey, we'd like to put some protection here. They said, why don't you do it after the fact? Because if we want to do it, we want to do it according to permit. And this board discussed it and said, no, we're not doing anything without a permit. So that's why we applied for the permit as shown. So I could keep riffing on all this lakefront stuff because I'm very interested in it. Yes.
Can I ask a question about?
Sure.
Can we go back to that image that we were just looking at?
Which
So,
one?
thank you, this one's perfect. So you had mentioned that 586 or 587 wasn't important enough for
Yes.
the rock.
Yep.
Can you explain to me the mechanical benefits of the louvers above that?
Yeah, there's about a 4% to 9% improvement in the erosion control in the outermost portions due to the louvers. The rest of it is for keeping dogs and humans on the private side or the public side. And then as you get beyond, once you get beyond where the rocks end, on the other side, as you saw from the picture, you need something for fall protection.
There's a 4 to 8% reduction in overtopping. That
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean that it prevents erosion. I mean, you're trying to make a correlation
No,
here.
I'm
It doesn't
I'm
necessarily
simply
exist.
citing what the engineers determined. Guys, I am
Yes, that
telling
was
you,
a
I'm
smoke
just
screen.
telling you what information we have. Your comments are well received. We understand this. And we'll keep going.
Can I ask a question about what the elevation of the sand is that I'm standing on at that point? I understand you're concerned about the stability.
No,
of
no, the water,
rock
today, the water's at 580.
wall.
Today,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
But this-
even at 585, it's not 587, it's 585, and it gets lower. According to the Shabika document, figure 8. It's the highest is
All
585.
right, let me go even
Now, let
deeper.
me finish.
Okay.
And therefore the wall is high. And I don't think you understand, that's what we're concerned about.
Okay.
People
Chuck,
standing on the beach.
I totally understand.
Well, I don't think you do.
I
because you're
do,
not very
Chuck, I
receptive.
do, I
You really
do,
aren't.
I do. No, guys, I'm not debating you. I'm not. I'm just telling you what this says. Okay, that's it.
But I think the public respect, and again, my comments tried to communicate this. There has been a tremendous amount of time and energy and effort and taxpayer dollars invested in this process. We all know that. And Warren has done so much work, okay? He loves this stuff. But I jumped to where I was to where I am now. The public has said, no, we don't want the wall. I just think going back to history, which is important, that we were working in the, listen, I heard today on a podcast, we thought we had a Brad Pitt. But we had a Frankenstein, you know, and we thought we had a Brad Pitt, but the public has said, you got a Frankenstein.
All right, let's keep going. I'm trying to be deferential. Please, just let me get through the rest of it.
Everybody
What's
they
that?
come, you say, let me keep going.
Well, we got lots of stuff. Let's skip to
longer?
the end. Skip to the end.
Can we
I know,
can
all
we
right.
make our comments?
All right, here we go. Yeah, this isn't a public hearing.
That's 3 hours.
Just keep going. Oh.
Yeah.
We really need to go on.
All right.
People are
All right.
tired, and quite frankly, I think
That's-
your board is tired, with the exception of one member. At this point, I would like to make a motion. I started this motion last meeting, and we'll do it again. I move that the Winnetka Park District withdraw its joint applications for permit currently pending with the IDNR and the Army Corps of Engineers, so that we can review the design that has been requested for permit, and that we can incorporate the desires and comments that have been very well vocalized by this community. I guess is there a second?
Okay, there's a motion made in second.
We don't have two very.
That's what I was gonna, my
See,
move
we
to
have that on the
table.
last
Hold on, listen, that, because there could be the same, there could be the exact opposite motion made a week from now, and it undoes it.
That's a 3 meetings.
Okay,
Listen,
here's
is there a
what
way,
I,
is there,
here's what I suggest. I would like to arrive at unanimity among this board. Okay, I would like to arrive at unanimity among this board. Because we've heard you loud and clear.
You have a
but
motion on the
also-
floor.
I know, so my motion is to table this motion in order that Christina and Eric can say their piece. Every one of us needs the opportunity to fully express their opinions. And so the motion made and seconded.
The first one is to be voted on, for the second one.
The motion to table
It's a live motion.
precedes. The motion to table takes precedence over the initial motion.
It doesn't, it was one. it was-
Katie, you are out of order. You are out of order. We have council here. Council?
That's correct. It is a motion that interrupts or the initial motion so that if there is a desire on the part of the board after a vote to table, it's tabled. If that motion fails, then the main motion returns to the floor. The main motion in this case is Colleen's motion to withdraw the joint application for permit to review the design and incorporate community input. The second by Cynthia. Warren made a motion to table. It has not been seconded.
Is there discussion on the motion to table? Anybody? I have some things to say. No. Okay. Because this has been a long and arduous process, and I know you all hate me right now. I'm trying to navigate a very complex situation. And there are issues that are beyond what I'm able to share with you in this room tonight. There's also deference to Christina Cotto and Eric Lesson. Eric, who's in his 6 years as board member, and I think there's a lot that they may wish to say as well. So I would just ask deference that we have time to prepare our statements before we put a fork in this. There's a lot that should be said and put on the record, and I think tonight I'd much rather do it in the setting on the 16th. If it's going to go.
May I just express what my intent is here? My intent in suggesting that these applications are withdrawn is I think at this point in time, listening to this community, there is a desperate need for us to sever the joint filing of applications so that we provide a private individual with certain benefits that that individual could never have, but for having been filed jointly. Government body can do much more than a private individual can. With respect to whether the property exchange agreement after 20 months is or is not still a legitimate agreement, but candidly, it is my hope that it is not, but listen to why I say that. It is not that I do not want to see a combined beach. It is not that I do not want to see an agreement with Orchard 2020. I very much do. But I would like to see an agreement that is truly bilateral, that is not an agreement that is so egregious to a public body. If you look at section 4A of that property exchange agreement and you start reading it, that is a public document. I
Well, it
can
is.
talk
I mean,
about
I'm
my
not saying you
perspective.
can't. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying be much better if we talked about that in closed. All right. Have at it.
It's a public document.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just,
Okay, this is a
I'm
discussion
trying
amongst the board.
just let me make my point very quickly. My point is that I'm very interested in preserving the options and the rights of this board. That's the only motive I have for asking you to defer your interpretation of the contract. And if you guys disagree with that after we go into close, then I'd say.
I'm not trying to interpret
Yeah.
anything. I'm just trying to read what's in the
Okay.
contract.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Where you have section 4A and you have the ability of one party to delay the conveyance of title until joint applications. Where does that end?
That doesn't say that.
But you may
It
say it doesn't.
absolutely does not say that.
Okay,
I don't even have it with me and I know it doesn't say that.
okay.
Can you just read it?
I don't want to break down.
Okay.
Can we,
Okay.
there's a
Then
motion
question.
made to table.
Why don't we have a deed? And that's what.
Great question, and I'd love to explain that
In executive session.
executive session because it relates
There's a
to
motion to
litigation.
table and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion to table? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Shambo,
Yes.
Commissioner Rath,
No.
Commissioner Root,
No.
Commissioner Seaman,
No.
Commissioner James.
Yes. Fails. No.
Main motion is on the floor.
On the floor.
Before I go, I have a question. We are a co-permittee. It's my understanding we can unilaterally withdraw this permit application. Is that correct?
I think that you would be within your rights to withdraw.
Thank you very much. That's all I need to know. All right.
I'm not saying that there won't be legal implications to that. I'm just saying you have the power to withdraw your application. There may be consequences to doing it.
Very good. I just so regret that we would not go into executive session and get a more fuller understanding of where this stands and where it can go without terminating.
20 months have come and gone. An application was filed without the ability of certain commissioners to review it. Both Commissioner Rapp and I asked to do that. This application provides for no beach access, and we can argue till we're blue in the face about public trust, but it does not have access. And my concern is that if the permit comes back approved, no matter what this community says, the parties will go full speed ahead in construction, and it's not what the community wants. It's not what they want.
It's not where this is headed. Yeah, that's not where this is headed.
Please speak to that. Oh, sorry, I said much tonight. From the permit perspective of that, it's like they are reviewing a set of documents, and they either do or do not have issues with what you have submitted. Even if they approve it 100%, if we so choose, we could eliminate the law. We will not get punished for not doing something. You will get punished for adding stuff that's not. Please let me finish. So, are you ready to pass? My take on this is we're having a meeting. One. Take a deep breath. One, two, no, 15. That's why I was in favor of the motion to postpone. Take a deep breath. About who said what, who looked at what, what's missing. It's like, there's two commissioners missing, that's the. So I understand, okay, so move it down to, let's keep plowing through it. See what the IDNR says, is it may very well become a
Still have a joint application.
Let's do a roll call.
No, so, let's see.
Roll call?
Mr. Chairman, can I make one other suggestion?
Yeah.
If the board doesn't want to wait until the full board is present, I would still recommend that it would be wise for the board to consider in closed session certain facts related to this matter before it takes this vote. And if it still wants to take this vote after the closed session, there would be no reason it couldn't. So we could go into close now and we could come out and the board could either proceed with the vote or change the vote.
I've been diligently seeking to navigate the way through this. I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak in executive session, closed session, and then take Steve's advice. Would you please grant me that? If we come out of executive session.
The question, I'm not going to grant you that. We spent so much time in executive session. I have
David,
been
that's so
for this
unfortunate.
project.
David, that's so unfortunate. And your sense of urgency and your agitation.
Urgency, this is June of 2022.
20 minutes.
The
20
public
minutes
has
of executive
spoken.
session.
1,302
Yes, I
signatures.
know, I know.
50 for it.
I know.
1,302 against.
I
The
know
public has spoken.
There is a path forward without the loopers.
What is the path? We can resubmit without the louvers. We can resubmit without the planter pockets. We can resubmit with stairs across. I want an expedient
Okay.
resubmission.
Then forget. Just you
Listen,
okay.
you have not.
Each of these, let me just, if you could put the primary exhibit back up, please.
There is a motion on the floor.
And I'm still discussing. We're still discussing. Just the primary plan. Primary plan. Look, there's been a great deal of thought into preparing this plan and to trying to navigate our way through a very difficult and contentious negotiation. The money and time spent developing this plan was not myopically focused on a single solution. There are many alternatives. And while it is abundantly clear that the community rejects the louvers, it is also equally clear that the community wishes that this combination of the two parts would proceed. And it's been a tremendously difficult negotiation. And I have endeavored to, the analogy that I'm using at home, remember that episode of Star Wars? The first one, when you're stuck in the trash compactor and the walls are closing? Yeah. Somebody, I see somebody smiling. Yeah, I feel like that. I feel like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker getting crushed between those two walls, trying to figure a way to stop it. So here's what I can explain to you. Here, please, it's my floor. Here's what I can explain to you about this plan. The North Groin is entirely on our property. We can proceed with the North Groin as proposed, and it's consistent with the Lakefront Master Plan.
Without the louvers?
Without the louvers.
Not that big
Without the
in
louvers.
the master plan.
It's very similar to that. The South Groin, just please let me finish. The South Groin is entirely on our property. The current property line is 70 feet south. We can build the South Groin entirely on our property without any further consideration. The center T goes away, and that's consistent with the Lakefront Master Plan. So there is an alternative here, a unilateral alternative for us to simply eliminate the center T and proceed. But if we do it tonight, it sticks a fork in the eye of the person who controls 261 Sheridan.
As publicly elected officials, we are bound to represent.
We
the
are
public.
representing the
No, we're
public.
not.
No, I'm trying to find a.
Warren, you said
Warren, we
2
haven't.
weeks ago, you said 2 weeks ago, Orchard 2020 was quote unquote ready to make a deal. You said that in public comment. It's 2 weeks, it's more negotiation. I think part of the issue has been, we've had a lot of executive session with perhaps incomplete.
Okay.
So I would encourage you to please.
I'm just gonna finish my remarks and then we'll go. Okay, can we do that? I'm gonna finish my remarks. Folks, the plan is not, the time and energy spent in this plan, it is useful, it's beneficial, it will serve the public interest with or without the center T and with or without 261 Sheridan. I don't want you to think that all the time and energy that we put to design this is for naught.
It isn't. It'll just be elements of the plan that may or may not come to pass in the future. So if tonight's the night we need to retreat, I'm sorry. It wasn't my intent to retreat. I wish my other board members were here to table the motions.
We're not retreating, Warren. You are using words to describe the board. Once again, we are not retreating. We
No.
are stepping forward to
Terminate.
represent the public.
Terminate. Terminate.
We're not terminating.
Okay.
This is not termination.
A very bad plan.
Hey.
Community does not want.
Can I make an alternate motion to remove the louvers from the plan?
No,
Okay.
no.
All
because
right,
we don't
well, there's a
want to-
motion made and second. Roll call.
Commissioner Rapp.
Can you restate the motion?
What's the motion?
Can you restate the motion?
It's motion to withdraw the joint application for permit to review the design and incorporate community input.
And removal to the, with the IDNR and the other. We have the vacancies.
Withdraw joint application.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Root,
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rochambeau.
No.
Commissioner James.
No.
I'll make another motion.
Motion carries.
I'd like a motion to adjourn this meeting.
We stayed for public comment.
Yeah, no.
We-
Nobody's gonna second that.
Can I make a motion to move to remarks for visitors?
Thank you.
Everybody, 1 second.
Second.
We take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
More remarks for visitors, right?
I just would like to say that whether this goes or doesn't go, that we really need to be aware of the safety issues at Elm and get something done. Because that is, I've been down and it's scary. And kids hang out down there at night and so on. So that's one thing that I just think is very important, safety issues. Because this discussion, joining, not joining, could go on for a long time. But in the meantime, we need to make our beaches safe.
Rob?
Hey, I've been in a lot of these, I've known too long that either tough decisions. I take great heart in the fact that what you originally created, and I know how much work went to actually walk the area. Paid for this village plan. And if whatever happens, we help that whole section, that will go forward, and it works. If it doesn't, then we're gonna. But the price, I think, is high. I felt that way. And it works fine, but it's a tough goal, but I know all the work we've done, and the community has done will pay off for the village.
Anybody else want to speak?
Rick Duran, we've been in the village for 40 years. And at the risk of introducing some humor so late in the evening, blink twice, dear Mr. Chairman, if you think you're under some sort of hostage negotiation. And we will extract you as a community. My second point is, the city of Malibu fined a owner of a beachfront property $12 million for inaccurately representing that his beach was private when in fact it was public. There are portions of this beach all the way around Lake Michigan that are public. To walk that continuous circumnavigation of the lake is public property. In Illinois, it seems like if you keep your feet wet, in other words, if you're within where the water washes and sloshes, that is the public portion of the beach. It's many people, petitioners, etc., have asked you to do the noble thing. I'm sitting here wondering why you're still trying to do the illegal thing, why you're still trying to create a private beach where there is not the ability to walk on the lakefront all the way, the nice little lady says, the only reason I'm here, every day I go down, I walk that route. That's the public trust component in the state of Illinois. It is not in other states of Wisconsin and Michigan because they're more noble. It just hasn't come up in the case law of Illinois. Okay, so this has obviously been the conversation of the village for several weeks. And in an event over the weekend, I was introduced to Justin as somebody who is a reasonable soul. And so to the two representatives from the applicant, the private applicant, I would say that we welcome Justin into the community and deem him to be a reasonable person that will read the tea leaves much better than this body seems to be reading the tea leaves this night. Now, having said all that, I stand second of all the other 1,300 petitions. I'm one of those names. We are one of those names, husband and wife, and we second the idea. But the idea of selling the public trust in an executive session and understanding it better, Mr. Chairman, is not what this whole meeting was about tonight. It's not a dialogue, sir. I'm just giving public comment. I don't honestly want an answer tonight.
Yeah, I have a question. You stated that the fence has like a hydraulic purpose where to stabilize the stone, like you did.
No. It only the outermost portions provide some weight over top of that. That's it. There was an engineering report in the application study. Yeah, this is public comment. All right, sorry, my apologies. Hope's got it. John?
Sorry, I'm not.
All right, sure.
Didn't you say that you didn't want to bring in, the reason for the fence was to lessen the amount of stone you had, force you had to bring in?
The purpose of the planter lot is a substitution for all that massive stone. The fence is is an extraordinary feature.
Well, I don't know what that means. I just came from the Great Lakes, the commission of the Great Lakes, the conference in Green Bay. And they don't know what the Great Lakes is going to do, whether it's going to rise or it's going to recede. So, in my view, good to plan for, keeping the stones. I don't think the fence is going to serve much of a purpose in terms of stabilizing.
Rely upon the question. The approach. I'm sorry, it's your comment. Excuse me, John Ritten's next.
John Ray, 326 Woodland Avenue. Let's not miss, the trees for the louvers, all right? We are going to be planting 20-foot, 25-foot trees. They are going to effectively block your view of the lake, even more effectively than the louvers themselves. And I really don't see a justification for trying to put some sort of garden out there on the beach. This is beach. Plants don't survive out there. One Michigan winter, coming in from the lake, that ice builds up, how many feet? 5-10 feet? And those trees and plants are going to survive in that planter box? Maybe so, but I kind of doubt it. I think you're going to have to replant them every year.
At least it's not salt water.
Yeah, it's not salt water, I'll grant you that. But I mean, they are a visual barrier. And, it's not that I don't like trees, but they shouldn't be on the beach.
One very brief remark about all these plans that you have on Lloyd. There's no indication of where the water intake is for our public municipal waterworks. It really should be included because it's a very important feature. It's about 25 or 30 feet of water. I think maybe our waterworks should install new pipes going out to the 50-foot down.
That's a matter for the village, not the
Pass it on to them. But also it should be included in those drawings. Just a suggestion.
More comments? I'm sorry, did you raise your hand first? Yeah, go ahead.
Christian Miller, I live on the north side of town, I used to live on the south side. And I've been here for 36 years. And we're beachgoers, and I attend a lot of meetings, particularly 2015 to 2016, when the projected 2030 beach plan was proposed. At that time, I believe you only got like 800 people to respond to your, proposals, what you like about the beach, what you don't like about the beach, was really a paltry number. And the bottom line is, all this has moved forward, and all this money is being spent to make our beaches look like swimming pools and not like the natural beaches that they've been since I came 36 years ago. I particularly am talking about these groins, these enormous groins that really only have to be on the south side to capture the sand. It doesn't even have to be on the north side, just the south side. That T that goes up the middle, totally unnecessary. And as a matter of fact, if you sit on the sand, you would not be able to see much horizon because you're going to have this huge groin to the left, to the right, to the middle. It doesn't belong, and it's going to cost a fortune. I don't know why the park district hasn't looked at the idea of just bringing in more sand and building up the groin on the south side, just as a groin, no louvers, no trees, so that we have a natural beach. It's that simple.
I'd like to return to a comment I made last week, and that was on the appropriateness of the breakwater on the south end of White Beach, where there are stairs up over that breakwater. It seemed to me if that was sufficient there, it should be sufficient in some manner at Centennial on the south side. So I would hope that the park board could return this 2030 plan in some form and then move forward with that, which would involve less stone. You're worried about all the stone. Well, as far as I understand it, the breakwater doesn't stretch as far out into the lake. You don't need as much stone. So if you return to that, it would reduce the issue of the cost. But I think that the plan of Lloyd is very acceptable. It has stairs over the rubble wall, and it allows access, and therefore it continues the public trust out there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Further comment? Steve?
Yeah, I really appreciate everything you've done. I'd like to hear at the end that you said we could potentially use some of the work that you've already done. I think what happened, so that it doesn't happen again, and what I think these people voted for tonight was to go forward with the plan that serves the village and the homeowner. And I think the key point that I heard, and I don't remember who said it, was we don't want to leave this up to the IDNR to decide and then have to fight it. And that's really an issue. And I understand executive session and that you want to go in there and you want to talk about this. I totally get it. But part of the problem with this process with a homeowner is that we feel, whether it's right or wrong, that there was really no transparency to us about the louvers. And I felt like tonight you were trying to justify how you got to the louvers. And everyone said, but we really don't care about the louvers. What we care about is that we don't want that fence. And everyone has spoken, but it didn't appear to the public or to your own board that they got the information, had the information. If there's no transparency with them, think how we feel. And I will tell you, I looked at that waterfront plan, I read every page, but to go to page, the 7th link, which it doesn't even say what the links are. It's just numbers and letters. I mean, I don't think anyone here but several of us went to page 231 on the 7th link. Because none of the links say what they are, then it might be page 218. So how many of you looked at the links? So it should have been in the front of the waterfront plan. The waterfront plan has changed. It needs to be on your website. As you move forward, we will support you with the exact same plan without offense. All of us, probably all of us, I can't speak for them. And I think you have a good plan, but we have felt that that homeowner has had a chance for 20 months to make this deal. And so from the public, we're frustrated, you're frustrated, and I'm really sorry. But I stand up for the ones that understood that tonight, nobody has these plans, and nobody can find these plans, no one can see the plans. So how did we put in a permit for the plans without the public even knowing that they had plans? That's my perception. And I know you put it out there, but there was a lot of
Further comment?
Okay,
Anybody else
so-
want to talk? Mary?
The Kenilworth Beach, it's a small beach, but they have great sand. And they only have that going out on the south side, not on the north side. And that's why they get such good sand. But I think that's been there for many, many years. That's not a new extension.
No, I believe Chuck Percy deeded that property. But he owned the land, and the guy that bought the property thought he could claim it as his own. No, Chuck Percy had donated it to the public. So that's where you've got this gigantic house with the big abutment. And it's so weird that you gotta understand the sand moving on the lake, that slugs of sand move down the lake. And if you're a beneficiary of a slug of sand, it might stay there for 10 years and then it might get washed out in a storm. So Kenilworth happens to have a great beach there. It's really about,
The ones right south of us don't have.
That's right, because they're the
They're
lead.
right in the water.
That's why Lloyd was so sand-starved, because of the big village power plant. Let me just, does anybody else want to public comment?
I'm Michelle Pachevsky, who's been residents for 10 years. So I just want to say thank you to the group that have been so involved. I think I will be a voice right now for a large group of young people. Left a group of 12-year-olds and younger. The divisiveness exists in that group too. It seems egregious to them and confusing. And they love the beach, love the plan, what it could be. But I just want you to take into account those individuals that weren't able to sign a petition. And there will be a flood of people that will be.
Let me just, does anybody else want to speak?
And I do appreciate letting you talk.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're hiding back here. We've all had a lot of commentary and it's been great. I love the show. The people are so wonderful. Look at everybody sitting here 3 hours later. Warren, I felt terrible when you said everybody's gonna hate me. No one's gonna hate you. This is not about you. It's about Winnetka. It's about the process. It's about all of our passion, which you obviously have for the project. Nobody hates anybody. We are all the same community, and we all want what's best for the community. So please don't take it personally. We can all be friends. I have to go to the Grand, and I have to see, you and everybody else at the Grand. And when I see you, I'm seeing you as a friend, as a neighbor. I'm not seeing you as a person who is for the park district, doing something that I personally don't agree with. Because one of the best things ever by our founding fathers was, I don't agree with you, but I defend your right to say it. And so you fought for what you believed in. I'm very grateful for the 3 commissioners who are willing to say, we got to pull this back, because this group needs some sign that you're listening to us. And that was a very nice sign. It was very important to do. And I think now people will feel like, okay, they get it, and we can work forward and move forward, which is what's needed.
Look, I just get one more thing, folks. Put my heart. So. About these.
That's true.
I'm fighting for you. Public prayer. It was never about me. So,
what I hoped, that this board could just take a time out and give Mr. Ishii the opportunity to do the
What has to be done? He said out one time.
This is, look, it's.
Motion to adjourn.
Just listen.
Can anybody second the motion to adjourn?
You're really gonna interrupt me.
Yes, I am, Warren. We have listened to you talk and talk and talk. You have surprised us once again with documents that are not in, that we have not been provided with. We have seen this time and time again. You want to talk people down. I did not come prepared here tonight to revoke this, but I did because you're not listening, Warren. You have been an inordinate amount of time. You were personal like this. Listen, this is not personal. This is the public.
It's done, it's over, okay?
So motion to adjourn.
It's done, it's over. It's
Motion
it's
to
not
adjourn.
over, folks. It's not over. We still have to protect the beaches. Move forward. Okay, well, motion made in second, roll call, please.
Commissioner Root,
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Shambo, Commissioner Rapp,
Ready to vote?
Commissioner James.
Yes.
So,
You know,